think it's happening. Oh, Jesus. Okay, this one. Okay, I think it's happening. Yes. Okay, yep, good to go whenever, Nico.
Jez, you, Haley, Hap, and Fish making your way out of the ankle-deep moors of Carnhold's outskirts. A brace of blue-breasted moorhens is your reward for a morning's work. Hap whistles tunelessly while Fish lopes lazily alongside the two of you. You find a nice tree to rest under and begin plucking the feathers, casting the darker ones away into the moor, but keeping the blue ones for Goran Fletcher, as you know he likes those. And you've just begin twining the feet of the fowl together to string between you before making your march back off home to Swan Song. When you hear this horrid noise echoing throughout the gnarled trees and dawn mist about you, a feline yowl of anguish and a great clattering. Hap cowers at the noise comically as he's much larger than the both of you. Fish begins barking in that direction, and Haley casts you a worried look up from her toil. What's that?
Shh, quiet. Sounds like a cat. Hap, it's all right. Fish. As the dog, the young mastiff, is barking at this noise. She looks at Haley. Wait here with Hap. Fish, come on, let's go. And she readies her bow in her hands and has an arrow and runs alongside Fish to go and investigate, get a bit closer without giving themselves away if there's danger up ahead.
Can I have a stealth check then from yourself and Fish?
Yo. 16 on the die for me, so that'll be 21 for Jess, and for Fish, 18. I don't think he gets a plus, so 18.
Yeah, the two of you are quite familiar with these surrounds, and so can move from the mounded areas away from like the sloshing mere water and keep yourselves quiet as you make an approach towards the noise. It grows louder as you go close, but then suddenly it's cut short. You hear the trotting of hooves. Fish next to you whines low, sounding his low urge to be given the command to sprint off forward, but is well trained despite his age, and he hunkers low alongside of you. You squint through the underbrush and can see this bloody antlered stag trotting back and forth, baying at the breeze and stomping its hooves. Nearby, there's a yowling mess in the leaf litter and weeds. You hear another like ow of pain, but cannot see the source. The stag doesn't seem to notice either you or the hound, crouched low and the side of it.
Fish, stay. She would say incredibly quietly, probably more so relying on hand gestures to make sure the beast knows the command. And so she can sort of tell where this noise is coming from in the leaf litter.
Yep, but just because of like the verdant area, like the undergrowth is too high that you can get good advantage to like spy what it actually is.
Yeah. Does she think she'd be able to get closer to try and have a look without rousing the attention of the stag?
You think it unlikely there'd be passages of ground you'd have to go over where there's no cover, only concealment by like shadow cast by trees above and such, and most like the deer will skitter. Though, give me a nature check or survival, your choice.
Yeah. We're in the swamp, aren't we? Not the forest, not the wilderwood.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that'll be 23 survival.
Yeah, you know it's rutting season, so it's just as likely that that stag might charge as Skitter once you're noticed.
Yeah. So she unshoulders her quiver, or reaches down into the quiver in her waist, trying to reach for something that she might be able to either distract the stag away with, or even scare it away. But she instead removes her hand once more, looks down at Fish, and gives him a little gesture for him to follow as she melts back away to go rejoin Haley and Hap, noting the spot that she's just left so that they can try and come back past on the way home to see if they can find that creature and either put it out of its misery or see if they can help it.
Haley's wide-eyed and Hap's visible behind a tree where he's cowering as you slosh your way back towards them. All the way, Fish has been whining low about the matter, and Haley looks up from her den. What was it?
A big stag. I think it gored something, or there was something hurt nearby. Couldn't see. But it's rutting season. Didn't want to risk the buck.
She nods. Dar said be careful.
You did. And I was. Came back, didn't I? How's Hap?
She shrugs nonchalantly. Scared, she looks over your shoulder in the direction from whence you'd come. That way's back to Swan Song. And we weren't supposed to come as far as the Mere Water. And she kind of kicks her other foot and it sloshes.
And well, we've been further than this. They're only going to know what we tell them.
That we caught these, and she'll produce the brace of a plucked fowl.
Exactly, she says with a big grin, but sort of
that we caught these.
A sort of gesture of lowering her hands and lowering her voice to gesture. Let's keep quiet still.
Sometime later, it's quiet in that bloody glade that you'd glimpsed. When you pass back through with your entourage, there's no sign of the stag, but some prints in the mud and the bloody, silent, still corpse of a wild cat, lesser cousin of the northern shadow cats. Its face is in a rictus of pain, and its belly is spilt out in circular augury around it. Lesser cousin.
Just looks down at the entrails and the final resting place of this beast, and has a pang of regret that she wasn't able to come and help put it out of its misery. It was clearly suffering when she heard it, but she is resolute in the fact that wasn't worth risking herself against the rutting buck.
Hap gulps, suppressing the urge to vomit, and looks around fearfully. Haley looks disgusted and rankles her nose, and Fish will plod forward to worry at the thing unless you stop him.
No, she doesn't stop Fish immediately. She instead says to Haley, "It's just a bit of guts." And then says to Hap, "Nothing around to hurt you. Whatever did this is long gone." And she would go over and join Fish in sort of crouching over the corpse and the entrails to sort of see if it's obvious what what ended this feline, suspecting maybe it was most likely it was the horn of the stag getting overly frisky in rutting season.
Yeah, it seems a simple enough explanation. It's gored. There's one wound upon it, but it's mighty and is most likely the undoing of this thing. You saw the bloodied antler stag.
Yeah. This is why we steer clear of the stags, she says to Hap. Just an accident. Cat probably got too hungry, too bold. Stags aren't. Even in rutting season, we steer clear. We'll be fine.
Haley hears a faint, and you do as well, gonging, ringing out just once from Swan Song beyond, and she says, "That second bell. We should get back to father. He'll scold us."
The way should be clear now, she says, sort of clicking to get Fish to stop chowing down on the entrails, and maybe pulls out a little treat from her food pouch to get his attention, reinforcing his training. You two go ahead. Haley, you with Hap. Fish and I will follow from behind. You know the way.
Yeah, they'll skip off that way, the catch in hand, and it's not too much time later on that you come inside of the curtain wall of Swan Song and the green town around it, so the red fork bending, collecting the whole thing together, and you feel like the town and its busyness and artifice around you as you seek out Hallis, Haley's and Hap's father. He's in the yards where you'd expect him, and there are horsemen about, soldiers of the Lord, going about their duties and training, and others busying themselves in preparations for the impending journey south of the Lord's sons. And you see Hallis like whistling through his teeth at working dogs, corralling some of the newer horses, while nearby there's like a large cold blood mare prancing back and forward in her pen excitedly. And Fish goes to join in and play with the other dogs as you and Haley and Hap go up to Hallis, and they call out a morning greeting to him, and he returns it to them by way of quick embrace, and then regards you, Jez, before him. "A fine catch indeed."
A feast, Master Hallis.
Hap, Haley, take them to the kitchens now. "Oh, but Dad..." "Do you know me to repeat myself, girl?" And she says no, and she'll take the fail as I come along, and Hap goes off with her, and he gestures for you to stand up alongside him and lean over the railings to regard the stock with him.
Jess and Haley share a sheepish look just before Haley and Hap slink off to the kitchens, and Jess joins Master Hallis over the railing, leaning quite casually as she looks down at the training.
"You remember her, that mare, Dusk? You're to take her with the Lord's son south as wedding gift to Lord Kevan and Lady Sylvie. You're to keep the retinue's horses and food and good things in order."
Her eyes light up and she looks over at him with a big beaming grin on her face. "I get to go. I knew you'd make it so."
"You'll stand up to the word I gave for you then, girl, eh?"
"Of course, Master Hallis."
"Good.
"Thank you."
And be wary of her," and he'll point at her prancing back and forth. "She'll soon come into season. Wear the other mounts of your lords about you. You'll have to be overly careful while you see to your toil. But do not bring the house into disrepute when you go to the lands of Lord Harte."
"I'll keep myself and the mare under control,"
"Good."
she says, with a grin that sort of suggests that may not be truthful.
Yeah, he doesn't see that part because he turns to like regard the stock and puts his hands together behind his back.
She does that thing. She's in her very late teens now, maybe early 20s, but she's still her upbringing, I suppose, and her circumstances of living, the way she's been able to live around Swansong and its surrounds with her Lord Father's lands. She does that thing when he turns his back. She kind of pulls a bit of a face at the back of his head, before stepping up to join him in pacing again.
You know what you are, Jez, he says, and nothing more upon that. You'll be camped with the other bastards at the bastards' feast, no doubt, when you get to Helmcrest. There'll be men and boys there who'll jape at your expense. If they offer you saltless gruel, you know what to do, eh? Ask for a second helping.
As I know to do.
See that she's well presentable and do not forget your manners there.
Yes, master. I will gorge myself on gruel, and they will be ever so pleased. And the mayor will come in good health and good showing. They will see. You will see. I appreciate all that you do for me, Master Alice.
Finish your chores and meet the Lord's sons in the courtyard at Third Bell.
Okay, says as she sort of skips off, like dragging a finger along the railing, making no hurry about it. But despite her sort of flippant demeanor, I suppose, she does always get her chores done and get them done quite well.
Two days earlier, Osterman, at evening tide, you were at Riverman's Rest, a tavern in Paleford. You'd rented a private room upstairs and only been waiting a couple of hours in the Commons, alone in your booth, but by a lone candle companion with you, waiting for a man, as they say. There's only a handful of folk in here currently, indulging at the rest. You can see across the Commons and Low Hearth from you, the urchin named Wag is somewhat in your employ here, ogling at one of the serving wenches who moves past at her duty. Suddenly a stranger walks in and he turns and straightens, casts a look your way, followed by a wink. Wag is not subtle, but he's proved useful thus far. The stranger scans the Commons till his gaze falls on you. He scuffs the mud from his boots in the threshing and then strides up to your booth. You were the man who offered coin to speak with me?
Perhaps.
He looks around warily and then back to you. I am Gibbet, your boy Wag. You said you'd pay.
If the information is useful.
Well, a tinkerer sees many things in his travels. I travelled many the byroad south of here. Your boy asked about the Crownlands. I went from the Red Keep to Maidenpool before I headed west and found myself in these lands. If it's them you wish to know of, I could tell all I do. But for the time alone, at least, that would cost me, sir.
Well, and I produced the silver in my hand. Yes, I wish to know about the Crownlands, and more importantly, House Harte. There's to be a wedding.
So I hear, sir. So I hear, he'll say, taking the coin and the seat opposite you in the booth. The candle wavers under his entry, but soon fixes as he sits alongside regarding you and the silver.
Have you been tasked to make gifts for the couple to be?
Oh, I would not deign the that I would enter their halls at such an occasion. I would be laughed at and mocked out of the castle, no doubt. No, no. The best thing for a tinkerer to know is when to leave, and I knew when to leave my time in the Crownlands. Feisty house, that lot. Bad blood between them and the Mannings. A wedding, they say, to soothe, to be a balm to that rivalry. Only the seven know, eh? But yes, I passed through those lands, plied my wares there. What would you know of them, sir? That he'll pocket the silver.
I would know the type of the affair that's having a wedding, yes, but at what grandeur have they called in?
Oh, well, 'tis no secret that Lord Harte loves his daughters well, and will surely spare no expense at their wedding of high lords. Young Kevan Manning is in fine regard with the king, having earned his spurs at the Trident. No doubt there'll be coin and feasting aplenty there, sir.
And I'm sure. And I try to get the measure of this man. Like what, just with a passive 14, what do I know about him? And a passive insight of 16.
Yeah, he's quite a bit older than yourself, though you wouldn't call him elderly. He has a wily way about him and is springy despite his age. I think he's a man who's seen a hard life on the road and has garnered no small wisdom from that. You think it likely he would sell information on you in this interaction and this place that he's passed through to someone else further down the line, but that's kind of assumed and not directly concealed by him.
I understand.
He seems transparent to a degree, as much as like a wanderer of no allegiance can be. The coin seems to speak with him.
Yes, I wish to know the guest list. I wish to know what they will have for dinner. I wish to know what they have to drink.
Fine fare and drink, I'm sure, my lord, though I could not tell you of the menu of Lord Harte's kitchens. Though of the guests, they say there will be many from around the Crownlands and such. And of course, the lords of the Riverlands, as kindly neighbour, have been invited also. Will your own lord, and he doesn't say anything further than just lord, but he hints at a space there and says, will your own lord be going?
I serve no lord.
All but tinkerers serve a lord, sir. And even we must obey their laws when in their lands, eh?
I kind of given him a nod, but with not a direct look. I say, what have you known within inside its walls? You said you spent a moment, a fly's moment.
Oh, indeed, sir. Fine old walls is Helmcrest and girt in three quarters by a moat that is bled from one of the inlets there. A fine place indeed to hang your shield and flag, eh? Well-kept household that is there of Lord Harte, his wife most pious, and in much regard of the septon there, as are his daughters, also the small folk there, say, though those in the knowing might differ in that. And he kind of jangles his pocket at that, as if like, I think you've paid me for everything I've said so far, but I'll need more.
And another silver is produced, but I don't let it go. I almost like lean it forward. You have told me anything that a common observer would know. I've never been to Helmcrest, but I'm sure I could find similar information than anybody that passing through. Tell me, what information would you give me for this next piece?
Oh, well, the differing on the matter of the piety of his lordship's daughters. And he'll reach out a gnarled older hand to seek the silver.
It's relinquished.
His youngest, she's most pious, pious as the maiden, but the elder, well, there's some part of the stranger to her, and well old and nigh she is of her coming into adulthood. The whispers that her handmaidens sung to each other. Oh, ripe indeed, sir. Ripe indeed. Her mother, of course, will have none of that, for she is pious of the seven, and much of that has informed the regard of her husband of late, who was a warrior in his younger days, but now all succumb to age, and he casts a glance northwesterly towards where your father lays ailing, and then back to you in the moment.
Well, thank you.
Of the guests you ask, he says, I have heard tell of some of those who will respond in kind.
And?
Some lords of the Riverlands and Westerlands will go so far as traverse cross to Helmcrest, and many who seek to earn the regard to lesser lords of the Crownlands will come and mule for favour of these two houses who have earned the attention of the king. As such, other houses will go to pry. Perhaps your own lord will too, sir.
I must say twice to you that I serve no lord, or one that you not know of.
Oh, if only the things I've said many times were true, sir. Oh, if only.
Well, thank you. You have received your silver, and your information will be useful. Now stay here at least 10 minutes. And I get up, and I join Wag as we leave. And we're standing out there in front of the inn, the bar. I'm thumbing a forged coin, one made of brass and silver. A new experiment of mine, similar to the coins that I paid this man in. What do you know of this man, and how did you find him?
We were passing through the villages, sir. Folk said that he were going to make his way through Paleford, then across the stones and the Red Fork, off into the woods to the next town, as tinkerers do. He came back here years past, but I didn't speak to him. I was only a boy then, sir, says the boy.
And why would you think he would be a good one to help us?
Oh, tinkerers hear much, sir, they say. They say that some tinkerers are as wise as kings. And then he thumbs his ear, or is it kings as wise as tinkerers? Folk will pay tinkers for their words and songs as well as their wares, they say. If I've failed you, sir, he says,
No.
in concern only for the coin that he's hopeful for.
I rest a hand on his shoulder. It is fine. And don't worry, you will receive your due as well. Let us go, though. We have much to discuss at Swan Song.
His eyes go bright at that. The place holds much allure from him, and always like a token of interest whenever you pluck him from Paleford to go to your father's keep, and to quickly fall in alongside you and go with you about your business. Lord Timon, the second bell has made you aware that you are late for a meeting of your father's reception in the Grand Hall. And you've been late before there and vaguely remember the toothless scolding. But as such, you're making your way across the parapets towards one of the gatehouses where you'll descend quickly and with practice over the years across the yard there into the hall with a regular route when haste is required. But just ahead of you, warm morning breeze lifting up her hair and that of her maidens You spy the image of a woman, and after a few more steps, recognize it is your stepmother out long after greeting the dawn, still staring off into the east. Her handmaiden notices you as you bound along the top of the stone walls, and she'll bow low, and your stepmother will turn towards you. What's your passive perception?
It's 13.
Her eyes are roomy. Perhaps she is ill, or perhaps she is been crying. But between the wisps of hair and such, you cannot get a proper discerning before she reaches out the hand for you, and training from youth instinctively kicks in as you bow slightly and go to kiss it. Good morn, Willem. I trust you slept well.
Morning, my lady. I did so. And you?
Well. Can you roll an insight at that?
Yes. Oh, it's 22.
She lies well. She did not, it seems.
Yeah. Are you well?
I am, sir. Quite well, thank you.
I frown a little, push back some of the long, dark reddish hair that's come down in my front of my face, put it back behind my ear, and say, I would talk with you if you wish it, but I'm late to meet with the Lord.
Roll persuasion.
Oh, it's shit. 8.
No, your father waits for you beyond in the hall, and already I'm guessing you are late. I saw your brother earlier go across the courtyard toward the meeting. I would not hold you. Pray, my lord, forgive me for barring your way. And she quickly commands her handservant out of the way of the steps, and she herself steps ritually back, not obviously willing to engage in any intimate conversation.
I'll study her for a moment, as I turn to go, and then sort of do a small bow and hurry off again.
Ronald, inside your lord's chambers, you stand next to where your father sits, swaddled in fine cloths and silks. Something horrid sputters in a holder nearby. Another rank concoction that the maester has enforced upon your ailing father. It's plain and clear, simple to everyone involved that it's the lover's pox that's doing in for him, and well earned, many would whisper, though not in your hearing. And he's currently making his way through a hacking cough and removing phlegm and blistered liquid from his face as he paws over the map with you. Curious indeed, eh, boy? Curious. To where will all the stags go when the old buck is dead, eh? When old Lord Harte croaks his last, his daughters will inherit. The daughters die in the birthing bed, and other perils that befall women. These only daughters for the offing. What would to happen, Ronald? What would happen if this Sylvie were to die in the birthing bed in regards to Helmcrest?
He sort of coughs in sympathy, although is sitting quite a bit back, and will continue to lean back whenever he's coughing. The liver's pox is something that Ronald greatly fears, because he too is a bit of a wastrel, or has been, and there's a sort of grim mirror to how he might end, and so he's wary of it. I suppose it's whoever marries into Lord Harte's lands seems the important decision to make.
Lady Sylvie is an heir, and Lord Kevan too. They both stand to inherit, but if the nuptials are sealed when their fathers eventually die, God's willing that is some time from now, he says, in no truthful way, then it will fall to Kevan. A shrewd move by our stag king, a shrewd move. Doubling the land of those loyal to him. But Lady Eileen, the younger, she would stand to inherit unwed. But Were she to be wed, to whom that would be a curious thing, eh, boy?
Indeed, very curious. He leans back again as the father coughs again, and sees some of the spittle around his mouth, and looks to one of the servants to get rid of it.
He will. Your father will shoo him away, but not with enough resistance that will stop the servant from getting the task done.
I suppose it could be me.
No good, no good. Think it through, boy. They are Crownland's lands. The Riverlands lords cannot own Crownland's lands, boy. It would have to be a proxy.
Oh, I knew that. He lies.
Listen, boy. Who marries Eileen? They would stand claim to Helmcrest if they exceeded her in rank. They must be a landed man. A landed man that we control. What do you know of that ruined, pestilential town that was called Riverthorn across the Red Fork? What have you heard?
Not so much. Oster sometimes yammers on about it, but I'm not so interested.
There are some who say the plague there is lifting. This summer it will be... and he plops something out of him. It will be burned away this summer. Ripe for the taking. If we were to seize those lands, install a lord pliant to us, and have them marry the younger Eileen. Gods forbid, were the elder daughter to die, we would stand to inherit no small amount of soft power, boy.
He's nodding as if he gets it, but he doesn't. He's much more interested in sitting on the back of a horse and in the thunderous charge, and way less in this sort of complex diplomatic machination. So he's sort of nodding along, it totally makes sense to him, and he's sort of saying, "Are we talking about the same person that we would want to put in that place?" He says, having no idea who it is.
That's the question, boy. Who? Were I not here to spoon it to you? Who would you choose, eh?
It's a good question. I'll have to think on it, I suppose. Have to have a good think, he'll say, and he drums his fingers on the side of the bed. He has no idea.
There's a knock at the door and a quick exchange between guards. Soon as interrupted as the steward will step in, and next to him your younger brother, Willem. Lord Willem Grayle, lordship. He'll give a bow in introduction of yourself as you enter, Willem, to the council. You can see here in addition to your elder brother and father, there is your eldest brother, Oster, looming in one shadow, flanking your lord, with the true Maester Grubuk of Swan Song. They regard you with contempt as you arrive late again. Kind of you to join us, boy.
Yes. Sorry, I see you've started to talk without me.
Busy, were you?
Yes. Yes. Somewhat. It took a while across... I came a foolish route.
Prattle, boy, prattle. He waved his hand. Come here. And he points down, covering his mouth with his hand to some effect. He'll grumble out, "The matter of the inheritance of Helmcrest, Lord Harte's lands, the wedding you're going to today."
Today, he says, as if he... yes, sir. I know the wedding. Came about quickly.
Master Grubuk shifts his weight from boot to boot. Your father descends into coughing, and it looks like by Ronald's appearance that he's prepared for travelling today.
Yeah, I'll notice that, and look down at my state of unpreparedness. When shall we leave?
We're just going to discuss these things with Father as to the plans and preparations that we have to make, and then we're going to get going as soon as we can. I have a question for you. And Ronald sees an opportunity to make himself look smart and make his brother look dumb. And we'll basically phrase the same question to Willem, like, if you had to pick someone to marry Eileen that would help us the most, who would it be? And he'll sort of lean back then, looking quite smug in his chair.
To marry Eileen?
That's right.
How old is she? She is the younger sister?
Aye, coming into her 18th year, 2 years junior of her eldest, Sylvie, whom you will honour well as house guest in my stead.
Had we a banner house, could have wed her to a... And I look around at Ronald, sort of seeing that he's screwed me over here. Who have
And
you...
lands boy to give them.
Indeed. No one springs to mind.
It's high time the both of you were married. That you should know a woman.
Ronald tries not to chuckle, like he's known quite a few women.
Willem doesn't quite go red, but he says nothing and moves the conversation along. Do you mean me, my lord?
He nods, half of it just shaking from his illness, but the other in acknowledgement. Aye, he grumbles with the phlegm. Your brother stands to inherit Swansong and all that entails. He cannot marry the second daughter of some Crownland's fop. No. He will marry an eldest daughter.
Willem nods. I see. That is fitting, I guess. Second son should marry second daughter.
We are in agreement then. Maester Grubok will draw up a letter of proposition for myself to Lord Harte that you and Ronald will deliver. You will present yourselves well, and you will do all you can to ensure there is a wedding between yourself and the lady Eileen. Amongst the other guests, if there are eldest daughters of high regard, Ronald, you should keep this in mind.
Of course, Father. I'm always on the lookout, and I'll make sure that Willem doesn't embarrass us.
To that end, he'll turn, shifting his gaze awkwardly over his shoulder. Oster, step forth. You will go with these men. You will assist them in all ways, as if obeying my very commands. And he says that to the three of you.
Yes, my lord. I look over my two younger half-brothers. I will watch them, my lord, with my mind and my sword, if need be.
Good. I have a gift for Lord Harte's for Lady Harte and Lord Manning's wedding. You will bear it there and seek that I've given no offense to them, that I must stay from my condition until I am healed, he says, speaking of his terminal illness with some casuality.
I will tell the Lord Harte, that you wished that you could have attended, but that his fine sons will stand in your stead. I'm sure they'll say the same.
You will all of you listen and watch and learn if you may, to see what there is that can be of reward to us here of Swansong. You will remember your oaths and where your loyalties lie. You will not give offence to Lord Harte in his hall of me.
We will not, Father.
Willem nods.
The wains and horses are being now drawn up in the courtyard, and the gift horse for Lord Manning too. You will leave 2 hours hence. If you've any questions now, ask them. I must return to my duties. My wife. Good. Then see to it, my boys, and come back to me.
We will, Father. And Ronald will stand, just like put his hand on his father's shoulder for a second, which is like as much contact as he wants to, or as he dares make. Like he probably wants to make more, but is worried about catching whatever sickness this is. And then he'll just nod and make his way out of the room.
We'll see you again soon, Father.
Yes, good. Grubrook, send for my wife. I would see her. And he's quite dismissive of you, Oster, as is his fashion in court and council.
I take no offense. I bow and exit with my half-brothers.
I leave, but sort of drag my feet, thinking of the weeping lady this morning. And grimacing, and I'll move to catch up to Ronald. And I'll ask, this, Lord Harte's daughter. Do you know of her?
I know of her. She's daughter of Lord Harte, second daughter. I haven't met her. What's the concern? You'll be rich.
Yes. What if she is loathsome? Fool.
You don't have to live with her, you just have to marry her.
Yes, I guess so.
Well, I don't know. It's how Father always did it, and I suppose runs in us. We're too charming by far, I think.
That is true.
Well, some of us.
Well,
I'm sure she won't be loathsome. I'm sure she'll be gorgeous and fantastic and everything that you've dreamed of. But if she's not, and if she's terrible, it doesn't matter. You'll get a big castle out of it.
well, yes, that's sounds all right.
All right. Sounds all right. This guy. And he like sort of punches you in the arm at like the level of like spoiled that you are as a person, that like a beautiful wife and a great castle and lands to inherit would be like okay, I guess.
He says, would not be the swan song.
No. Nowhere is. It's not so far. You can visit.
Thank you, my lord.
I can get used to that.
I'll probably go hurry to actually be able to be ready in 2 hours.
Yeah, I imagine much of the household and servants are like well versed in your ways and have like various things like necessaries for you, almost as if like along the route you take to the courtyard, and kind of like slapdash fashion. And like your younger half sister has arranged like mounts and saddles, tack, harness, and such for all of you, along with the other stable people. And it's not too long until all of you, with your preparations in place and what things you might take with you, can assemble there with your mounts, the wain, and the 2 mounted crossbowmen who will escort you, garbed in your the tabardry likeness of your own, with the red, white, and blue, sporting swans upon the shields that they sport on their backs, and by the bunting of their horses. Is there any last-minute preparations or anything in particular or of note that you guys want to take or do before you take to the road?
What
Jess
I really
would.
go
There
ahead.
you go.
I was wondering what you said. One of them worshipped a stranger. Is that right?
He was more inferring that she was like unknowable or mysterious or perhaps like sinister. Not that she directly worshipped the stranger or
And
acknowledged the stranger.
is that I forget which.
Less pious, like she's more impious, the elder.
Is that the older one, Sylvia?
Sylvie, yeah, the beauty.
Okay. No, I probably would not. I wouldn't say that to the Lord. So I'm good. Just prepare my things. Oh, okay.
Jess has been getting all the horses ready for travel and helping pack things up with some of the other house hands, I suppose. And when she sees William come out dressed, probably to the best degree that he could have been at the relatively short notice due to his absent-mindedness, dressed for travel, she waves him over excitedly. Says, "Look, this is Dusk. This is the mare that we're to give to Lord Harte and his daughter as a wedding gift. Isn't she beautiful?"
It is beautiful, Willem says, but he's more like, and he's smiling, but it seems like he's more smiling at Jess's excitement than at the beautiful horse. You are to come with us.
She sort of stands up a little bit straighter with a huge grin on her face and nods to him, tightening a strap, and maintains the eye contact as she says, "I heard the moat of Helmcrest Castle is 50 foot wide. Do you think they have a falconry?"
Maybe, yes. Can't wait to see it. I forgot we were traveling today, to be honest.
Why am I not surprised, brother? Well, you're well dressed for it, she says as she sort of eyes him up and down with, I imagine, maybe like some, I don't know, some ill-fitting or sort of mismatched pieces of gear or clothing that would maybe be more suited to either, dining at a fancy feast rather than traveling, or maybe he's even like got his gauntlets on because he couldn't find his riding gloves or something like that.
Yeah. Yes, well, the servants, they do try, but they make mistakes at times. Forgive them.
One of these days you'll have to learn to dress yourself,
No, I don't think so.
My lords, good morn. Two knights stomp into the courtyard amidst all of the busyness. You'll recognise them as Sir Eric Blackthorn, the Master at Arms of Swansong, and the much younger Sir Garin Port, knighted in the same year as you, Sir Ronald, and well known to you. And Eric strides towards you, Willem, and Garin gives an easy smile and strides up towards you, Ronald. And he's the first to speak and says, "Oh, you weren't going to leave without me, were you, Red Dog?"
Wouldn't dream of it. Although, don't think it's possible you follow me around like a dog, so here we are.
There's too much wine there for you alone. Boy, fetch my horse, have it readied. Yes, my lord. And off someone will go. And he'll look back to you and put his hands on his hip. He's of a similar kind of muscular physiology and the height to you. He stretches his back in the morning. Both of you kind of sporting bruises from the training yard before dawn, and he looks at the assemblage. Peace, makes travelling light and uninteresting.
That's true. He leans in close and says, "Maybe we'll find some foolish idiots along the road who feel like a bit of hassle. Fingers crossed."
Or he gives like a mocking, stern face. "They say there's to be no archery or jousting at the wedding. Can you believe it? There'll be a hunt, though. There is that.
No. His like face falls when he hears there's no jousting. Like, that's like the one thing he was looking forward to in this otherwise very boring event for him. He sort of nods. Well, I suppose maybe we can catch something impressive. We could try make a name for House Grayle over there.
They say that the king himself will hold a tourney in the capital in the months to come. That he spoke of it last year. That after the short winter there'd be a tourney for his eldest boy's name day.
Well, that, my friend, we shall have to attend.
I should expect your Lord Father will receive an invitation. The coffers of the Red Keep will be well happy if every lord in Westeros goes.
Well, that would be extremely interesting. We could joust against someone worth my time, and he'll like slap him on the shoulder.
Perhaps Lord Beric's son might bury you again in the lists, and he gives like a, in that way that friends can say real severe stuff to you and get away with it by smiling. He does that.
I've given him as good of a seeing to as he's given me most of the time.
True.
Some of the time.
Were at war, one of you would be dead by now.
Yep.
We shall have to find other sport in Helmcrest, and at this he gives like a groan, as if punctuating his statement, to get up onto his horse, and his squire will fall in beside him. So, mud-sodden fool. He's one of the page boys that came across with your father's new pretty young wife. A dullard, if you ask me. He'll die in the first fray, if there ever is one.
Is this one of the boys with him?
Yeah, his squire.
Oh yeah. He'll have a look at the boy and see like what how he looks.
Yeah, he looks like a hard-working lad, wiry, of like a darker complexion. He's from the wooded lands of Lord Page that's lie north across the Red Fork, and is one of the many retinue that your lady half, or stepmother, I should say, brought with her. And he, of some small knightly lineage in House Page, was spawned, though not rich enough to enjoy like a fine, nourishing upbringing as yourself. He's slow to take, I guess, but he's of an age where that could be hammered out of him. He seems to be effectual enough in that he's brought a horse and all the garb that his lord required, and required no chiding or beating. So in that respect, a servant well enough. But as for his worth to be knighted, you couldn't know until for some time.
Is this your first wedding, lad?
I'm a lord. Well, wedding in a castle and such. I've seen those in the townships, but they're far different, lordship. Looking down at his boots.
Looking forward to it?
Oh yes, my lord. They say there'll be wine and ale for us at the bastard's feast. And the older men say that there'll be, and then he'll just stop at that.
Yeah, he'll sort of smile easily and give the boy a nod. It's all right. What did they say?
There'll be women, lord.
Yeah, you'll fit right in here.
Will you take to Squire Lord? And then he realizes he's asked like a noble person who's older than him a question, which he's not allowed to do. And he like moves forward as if he can like step into retracting the statement.
Ronald like laughs at it and the awkwardness of the situation. And he's got an easy way with servants most of the time. He's not so concerned. Like, he knows that he's a lord, and so doesn't have to like remind servants of it constantly. I don't have a squire, is what I'm gathering here, right?
Yeah.
Myself. Yeah. Well, we'll see. I'm going to go to this wedding, and we'll see. Maybe someone will impress me. There's to be a hunt, and there'll be hunts of many kinds for beasts and for women, and maybe, if you impress me, you never know what might happen.
Lord Garin says it will be a score of years before I'm anointed, that I have much toil ahead of me. It would be easier to bear if I had a friend.
Well, hopefully you can find one there at the Bastard's Feast.
There'll be boys of all ages, and games of chance, all manner of things, Lord.
You don't get in trouble there.
Oh, I won't, Lord. Lord Porter's warned me so, and I will not forget it, my lord.
There'll be no fighting.
Oh, no, sir.
All right, but if someone hits you, you hit them harder.
Oh, yes, sir. I mean, no, sir. Oh, yes, Lord.
And he'll like laugh and like punch the boy in the shoulder, and then like turn to Port with this sort of like look of like, this kid.
Upon your horse, Daleb. Yes, my lord, will say the boy, as he's summoned away by Garen to like mount up and fall in with the rest of you, and in kind of like an annoyingly imperious way will like urge his horse up nearby to your own, Jess, and say without looking at you, but definitely to you, point ahead of us, girl. And he'll like gesture that you like take up point some strides ahead of the main party as they like fall in to form a thin column and pour out of Swan Song south for the river road.
Yeah, she sits a little straighter in her saddle, smile widening as she does so.
Yeah, in an irksome fashion, he'll like look over leeringly at you, Willem, and then cast his eyes to Jessica riding off in front of you and give you a queer smile. And as he looks back to the view in front of him,
I smile back. I'll say just loudly to anyone who can hear me. Why is there to be no joust? No contest of skill with the bow? I'll look around as if I'm talking to nobody or everyone.
Sir Garen Port will say, they say that it's King Robert himself who's ordered these nuptials to seal the bad blood that simmered between those two houses for many, many generations. You're familiar with the song Lord Harte wrote out one day? It all happened from that, so the singers tell it. Perhaps the king wants no chance of anyone coming to harm there. No rivalries are new to start, or blood to be spilt in the lists. They are dangerous, too dangerous to most, he says down his nose at you.
Yes, well, I suppose that's a fair reason for it.
Perhaps he fears what may happen to his daughter's bridegroom in the lists on the eve of her wedding. Can you imagine such?
Yes. Well,
tell me, Lord Willem, would you join the lists? Were there to be a joust? At that, he'll like turn over his shoulder to you, Ronald, and give like a gross smile.
Yeah, he'll smile back. Not quite as nastily, but is interested to hear what Willem will say.
Willem will sit and look for a while and say, surely too dangerous for myself. I like the riding, the lancing, but no, against another man, I do not know that I would. I'll look back to him, just seeing what my weird train of speech has done to him.
Yeah, it kind of like derails him or like stifles him, and he finds himself agreeing with you, even though he doesn't want to, as he like rides along alongside you. The two soldiers that bring up the rear of the party will share a weird look from beneath their kettled helms, and then back to you guys and your safeguarding.
What is the danger, though, with the bow? Surely none is so bad that they will shoot someone watching?
Perhaps the old stag lord is miserly. Who can know?
Pity.
Archery is a lesser man's sport, though.
Or he can't afford arrows.
Mayhap it is dark in that part of the world, and there is no light for the Fletchers to see by.
They say there is to be a hunt, says Sir Garen, hopefully, as he trots along. You could put your archery to use there, if the beasts of the woods do not frighten you. You hear something grumble out of one of the soldiers that bring up the rear.
A hunt, yes. That will be well.
It is my hope, sincere hope, that we shall hunt many times at Helmcrest, and he shares a smile between you and your older brother.
I think by this point, Jess would have slowed down her horse as well to try and join in on the conversation. Her ears perked up with this talk of hunt.
Yeah, Ronald will see that and say, it's not the kind of hunting that you think. Jess.
She just rolls her eyes at that. So it's not only the stags in rutting season.
Yeah, in Swan Song, it's always rutting season.
You'll catch something one day, Ronald.
Beautiful women is what I'll catch.
Or a wife.
Protect me. He looks up at the sky.
It is only fair, I think, that you should do it first before me, so you can show me the way of it. Do you not think?
You're not talking what I think you're talking about, Willem.
Our Lord Father and Ronald here have made a wise plan.
We were discussing something. He looks around to see who's in the train and how loudly we should be talking about this, in case there's I don't know if there's just peasants and stuff with us or whatever.
Yeah. To be exact, there are 2 soldiers in escort at your father's command, or capable older veteran men. Yourself, Sir Garin Port, and his squire. There's Jez, who's responsible for the mounts and food. Your eldest brother or half brother Oster, and Willem. And I don't think there's anyone else. So what's that? 8? Yeah, okay. That's all that are there. And so spaced out, if you wish, that you could speak quietly and just be heard by those.
Yeah, what, has Father been giving you 2 lessons on how to be with a woman?
I don't think I'd want Father's lessons on how to be with a woman, to be honest.
Yeah, Willem goes stone silent for a minute, and I'll talk. Then look around to be oh shit, we're just among riders who could hear us. And I'll sort of whisper or talk quietly to Ronald and say, "Did you see Father's wife this morning?"
No. She's how is she?
She is burdened with a duty I would not want.
Being in the same room as him is repulsive enough. Never mind the same bed.
Willem shakes a little bit, in a flamboyant kind of shivery gesture. Says, yes, poor woman.
Poor woman. That's why you don't fuck around.
Yes, excellent advice.
I'm full of excellent advice. I just don't follow any of it myself.
After some hours travelling at decent pace on horseback, you come to the outskirts of your father's domain. You can see the familiar stones that have acted as borderlines for many generations before the current king and these times. You can see where swans have been graven into them, and various older inks have been used to colour them. And there's a few little low hovels that nestle around a copse where a small stream feeds some manner of life here. And there's some small movement at the corner of the road ahead where this largely wilted leek field lays out before, not for lack of nourishment or water, but for tending. It seems if the farmers here have been lax, there's not many people compared to the houses. In fact, you spy only 2. And one of them a babe, and the other its mother, no doubt, crying as she plants a tree in some of the prepared soil in the corner of the leek field nearest to the road. "Make way there, woman. Get out of the way," says Sir Garin from atop his destrier, even though she's clear of the ditch, she's not actually in the way. And she'll scurry from her toil reluctantly away. She's been grubbing in the mud for some time, it seems. She doesn't look up. The baby begins to squall at that.
Lands look poor.
The men here are lazy, he says, giving a discerning look over the fields. Much of that harvest will go to rot.
They should work harder.
Agreed. A good belting would make them do so.
Yes, that does make toiling in the fields a lot easier once you've been belted. He says, like, not really paying much attention.
You see a look that comes across his face as if he's about to shout out again to the woman, though rarely of him realizes his place and will like halt his horse, not wanting to speak in Ronald's place.
Perhaps there are simply too few here. He looks around at, like, the sparse dwellings.
So she's crying, Nico? Just standing at the side of the road?
Yep.
Oh.
He'll like, whoa, his horse, and look down at her. What's the matter?
Apologies, my lord, she says over the squalling of the babe, and she's trying everything she can to quieten it, as it's uncomfortably loud, but it's nothing seem to have any success.
Why are you standing here?
I'm burying my husband, lord. This is his grave. Inside of the road where we met. And she like gestures to the one you're on that connects to the river road.
What happened to him?
He died at the end of the winter, lord. Oros were his name. Served in your lordship's feud a time. You remember the name vaguely, but not the man or his face.
And you buried him here? Like in the middle of the road? Or like on the side of the road?
No, she's off the side of the road at the corner of a leek field, and she's been drawing up water from the ditch at the side of the road, and she's just like planted a tree, presumably him under it. He liked the sour apples of the Red Fork, my lord. I'm planting one here for him, that our daughter can come. Wyler is her name, lord, and she like holds the snivelling babe up for you to like hold, or give the opportunity to hold, if you will. It's a great blessing amongst the small folk if a lord does that, though the thing looks grimy and smelly to you.
Yeah, I will. He was a soldier in our, soldier of a kind, and it's something that we take seriously. Yeah, so he'll lift up the baby for a second, and then look at her, and like, is the grave already dug? Like, she's already done all that?
Yep.
Yeah.
By the look of her, like how soiled her clothing is and how muddied her hands are, and she looks exhausted.
Yeah, he'll hold the baby for a second, and then like quietly say over her shoulder to give her like a silver.
One of the soldiers will like heft down and like take up his shield and sling it onto his saddle, and the crossbow too, and come across and in a transactional manner produce a silver and hand it over begrudgingly to the woman. Thank you, my lord. Thank you, she'll say, for the coin, and just as much as holding the baby. It like lessens its squalling so much to like to more of a simmering now.
Any who give service willingly and successfully should be remembered correctly.
Oh, I do, lord. I remember Graham and his sons, and she points across to the two abandoned farms next to her own, from where you can see Oster is appearing, shovel in hand. They went off to fight for your lordship at the Trident. I remember them.
And these lands here? Who lives here now? There's no sons?
Well, that farm were Allard's, but he died during the winter. The same sickness as my Horace lordship. And his sons, well, both of them serve as soldiers. They've no time to toil afield, lordship. These are all my Wylers, though I do not know how I will tend them, lord.
Well, it's something to think about.
Yes, lord, she sniffles. And she'll take her baby back at this point.
Well, you have my condolences. We have to be going, a wedding to attend to. You understand?
Thank you, my lord. Thank you for the silver. My daughter, I will tell her, and she'll never forget that she was kissed by the red swan. I mean, by your lordship. And she'll look down at that.
Yeah, he'll smile. Well, I hope that it helps.
Thank you, Lord, she'll say, and as your train moves off, plodding up further down the road, the baby will commence to crying again, and she'll finish her last reveries at the apple sapling.
Ronald will kind of think about like how strange it is. There's no one here. Like, how are they keeping the harvest going if there's no one here to do any of that work? And so he thinks it's something worth thinking about and like talking about when they get home. Because like the army is important and it's a big part of what it means to be of House Grayle, but if we can't feed them, then we're in trouble.
And soon their visage will disappear as the road swallows you up and spits you out onto the river road leading into the King's Road and down that well-policed path at this time of year and across into the Crownlands with the maps and contraptions of Ulster and by the wild law and road law of Jez. You're able to enter not too long later into the realm of Lord Harte and come into view of the mighty curtained Helmcrest astride its shimmering mountain moat. And I think that there now would be a nice place to take a bio break and such before we get into the wedding of Lady Sylvie and Lord Manning.
Cool, sounds good.
Perfect
Alright.
timing.
Oh, man.
this and this. Okay, good to go.
So you guys have come now to the curtained keep of Helmcrest, where it sits astride a moated mound. And you can see there are lords and knights of repute in their caparisons and their tents borne up within and around the moat of the castle, and presumably inside its grounds. A decently sized affair, and there are the sigils and imagery of lesser houses, some known to you, many unknown, or Crownland houses, who have set up, coming in like pairs or small groups to glimpse the might of a noble wedding and to feast therein. When you're allowed across the bridge and under the portcullis and welcomed in proper, given your noble station, into the courtyard of Helmcrest, you can see there too the place is thickly thronged, and guests of tents and pavilions set up to give the place a cloying and claustrophobic kind of feel. But despite that, stable hands and servants, well traversed, will make their way through the press to you to take your mounts and usher you to noble reception, given at this hour of the day, which is sometime afternoon when you've arrived, is the Castellan and Maester Hamden. Greetings, noble lords of the Riverlands. House Grayle, I presume. You must be Lord Ronald, sir.
That I am. Appreciate the welcome.
And he looks to the man next to you, taking him to be someone of station, giving the way that he's dressed, ignoring really the servants and others behind you. Your brother.
I assume he's looking at Port as opposed to Willem, but he'll point at
Yeah.
Willem. Yeah. My brother is here. Willem.
Oh, welcome, Lord Willem, Lord Ronald. You both, you honour my lord. Forgive him that he is not here personally, but there is a great amount of preparation and guests needs be seeing. You are all cordially invited, of course, to the welcoming feast this evening. And though he's saying that to the group and like loudly, it's obvious that it's just the two of you, like people who are noble.
Yeah. Of course. There's much to do in a wedding like this.
My lord will thank you for your understanding. Unfortunately, my lord, there is no place for you now in the castle grounds. You must camp without, I'm afraid. Lodgings have been thoroughly used here, and he looks about at the great busyness as if that's an adequate excuse to someone of your rank not being housed in the keep.
We shall have to camp outside the castle?
Yes, within the moat, but without the walls, yes, my lord, as you can see. Many lords have answered my lord's kind offer in attendance of the wedding of his daughter, and there simply is no place, my lord.
I kind of sit back in his saddle and look around. I see. I suppose I'll have to do. He looks in at the maester and sort of gives him that sort of lord look of this is unacceptable, and he wants him to feel that. But there's no space. He's not going to cause a huge scene about it.
Are there tents set up?
Yes, a great many, my lords, and my lord will have tents set up for you unless you have brought your own.
No, we had made the assumption that we'd be staying in the keep. It's usually the sort of right that we're afforded.
Yeah, you can imagine your father launching into a spittle-laden tirade at this point and making quite a scene. You're not a great house or anything like that, but yeah, certainly this is unacceptable. Some would say unforgivable. And he's giving his best apologetic look, and you see the wisdom in not having the Lord here to refuse personally you like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the kind of thing where it's not this guy's decision or fault. So it's when you're giving out to a waiter about something that's happened with you should be talking to a manager, and so he knows giving out to this maester's not going to do anything. But even so, he wants him to know he's displeased.
If you wish to kind of push the matter and try to assert your will and conflict this man, you can intimidate or persuade him.
I'll certainly try, yeah. It's not bad. It's a 16 on the die, so 16.
Do you voice your displeasure at this? And he begins to quail, and like many lords and ladies and people of some repute are looking at the scene that you're stirring up, and he grows visibly uncomfortable.
I'm going to sit a bit taller in this saddle. Willem's quite tall, maybe I'd say he's big and he's strong and has high, but he's more tall than he is broad. So when he sits up straight, he can see over like everybody's heads, and he'll look at the castle and say, it looks a big enough castle. Must be small on the inside, is it?"
Indeed, there's no space for the two of us.
Maybe it should have been host this wedding elsewhere.
Yeah, at that the maester will like step in to the rising chaos. "Oh, my lords, please, forgive me. Wait here, and I will see what can be done."
We'll see that you do.
And others will like kind of stop in their way and like watch this unfold. And under that, he kind of cowers a little as he like shambles back towards the keep, leaving you in the bustle. For now, you can see pavilions about of all colours of like the lower houses and knightly houses of those representatives who have come here. Naked maidens, emerald chalices, bloody fish, red severed horse heads on fields of green, prickly porcupine on bright fields of yellows, the blues, reds, greens, and whites of your own Riverland lords, and others of note. You can regard them and the cloying busyness of the keep for some minutes until Maester Haemden is making his way back through the people, looking visibly more relieved than when he left.
As he comes back, before he says anything, I'll say, we are not so big as we look. We would not take up too much room, I'm sure."
"If you will forgive me, Lord, we have found a place for Lord Preston's noble representatives. The two of you will have quarters by the kitchens, Lord. There will be rooms set up for you."
That sounds about correct.
Yeah, you can see that there are a couple of people moving out of the hall with kind of dejected or angered looks as they're being ushered out by soldiers clad in the bloody stag's head of House Harte.
Yep, that's pretty satisfying to Ronald's ego, getting other people kicked out so he can stay there. Although he worries about when or if like a great lord arrives, that they'll be kicked out in the same fashion. But nonetheless, he like takes a long hard look at the maester before just like nodding and then beginning to ride his way in.
Yeah, the maester will look unapprovingly at the rest of you as the two lords are let in, and somehow in his eelish fashion, Sir Garin will fall in with you, Sir Ronald. But his squire will stand alongside Jessica and Oster. "The offer of my lord does not stand to ignobles," and he just gives you a reproving look. "Do you wear any sign that you are a broken chained maester or anything like that, Alistair?"
No.
Yeah, so he just takes you all as common servants and eyes the outsides of the keep where you can see to your own lodgings.
Suits me fine.
Let us go, sister.
A night in the tent might do you good, Oster.
Would we have brought tents and stuff with us? No, right? Wouldn't.
Yeah, you have a wain, like a wagon that'd be pulled by cold blood horses, and there'd be like equipment, like a soldier's tent at least in there that you would have used to camp in along the journey here, which took a couple of days.
Mm.
So you guys would be erecting that and sleeping in that. It's enough for 5 people, I believe. So yeah, enough for you guys and the soldiers.
Yes, we'd get straight to work setting that up. Finding a good patch of ground and just getting to it. No bother at all.
I'm going to, I think, leave most of my gear with that tent. rather than take it into the keep.
Sure.
Is there anything valuable in here, brother, that I should keep an extra eye on?
Well, yes, my socks are in there.
Yes, your silk socks.
Yes, and the cotton and the wool socks as well.
Well, whatever shall you wear?
He'll
We'll
like
keep an eye.
he'll look down and like raise the sleeve of his trouser on one foot to show you that he doesn't have a sock on that foot, and like wink at you.
She just laughs, shaking her head. And then gets back to work, trying to like correct Oster in the way that they're erecting the tent together.
Yeah, you can see that beyond the Bastard's Feast is burgeoning, and there's like tents and pavilions and mead tables going up there on the outside of the moat, where your own encampment is joining onto the others.
Look, sister, our feast hall for this evening.
Looks to be a good bastard's feast, she says with a smile, no hint of sarcasm. You know very well that she's proud enough of the fact that she's a bastard, purely because she gets to sort of walk the line of both worlds. She gets all the privileges of the noble, but is invisible as a bastard when she wants to be.
The two soldiers and the squire of Sir Garin and the wain driver will all assist in like setting up the soldiers' tent and storing the provisions in there and unharnessing the horses and all the other chores that must be seen to. And throughout that, you can hear intermittently the sound of fighting and cheering as some of the knights have already arrived preemptively here, training and sparring and strutting as cockerels do, where the small moat stream here bends, and several people have forgone the shelter of their tents and are out under the afternoon sun, watching, cheering, and wagering as men batter at themselves and kind of setting up their own kind of melee, as it were, in lieu of ones that aren't happening at these nuptials, perhaps even by order of the king, but this sparring is going on, and the two soldiers who'd come with you at Lord Preston's behest, once the toil is done, they'll haul up their arms and go to like watch in and wager with the other men as the muddy square is drawn up.
Yeah, I fall in with them once the tent is set up. And almost, you said we have two soldiers, and do we have a third retainer?
The wain driver, the two soldiers, the squire of Sir Garin, Jessica, and yourself.
Well, I turn towards Jess. Do you wish to see the contest of arms?
Every time, she says, but hammering in the last little peg or wooden stake perhaps into the ground for the tent. Standing back, hands on hips, and nodding in satisfaction, and then turning her attention back over, or looking over to where the men are sort of gearing up for some competitions, and then looking back over to where the horses are, toward her own horse, Stepper, that she rode here on, and to the gift mare, Dusk, that she's in charge of making sure got here clean and safe and well fed and everything. But I have chores yet to finish, I would think.
Probably best know that we're not in Grail lands anymore, and beyond the safety of many soldiers. And you are a woman.
She just smiles. I have my three brothers and
two which are behind the inner bailey. And the
exactly.
other two.
Men on the inside, she says with a wink.
Just be careful.
She keeps her smile, but says a little more seriously, I will, and nods. I know you're all looking out for me. And Father Soldiers here, who I'm sure she would know by name, the pair of them, and she would name them, will watch out for me as well.
I thought I would look for houses that are entering, and I would take note of just who they are and who's in their, how many retainers they have. If they come, like, I don't know if they'd come like heavily armed or not, or, something like that.
Yeah, down around here, there's no one of like great note or any not minor houses. That'll be knightly houses or of that kind of manner. But you can spy a few banners fluttering about, held by servants and squires of the different combatants. Nearby to where a huge man who's naked from the waist up, wielding like a double-handed, blunted, tawny sword. There's a squire standing holding a fluttering green banner with like a silver chalice emblazoned upon it. Whistling and calling with two hands cupped over his mouth. There's a young knight, striking kind of visage, not so tall, but lithe and graceful in his movements. He sports a blue shield that has a dancing maiden upon it. Who else would be there? There's a man who has a grey shield fluttering in the breeze. It has a snail borne upon it. No squire holds that. It's just stuck into spear into the ground, and there's a knight nearby to it, clad in grey, awaiting his turn to go in and spar. Two of the men, relieved of watch from Lord Harte's retinue, like standing, whispering to each other, hammering out a wager before the next combatant will take to the bare-chested man. That young Logus, he's a brute, make no mistake. Take me wager on him, Tarn. Aye, how much? 4 coppers. It's a certain one. Aye, he'll mark it down. He had like the jingle of copper coins between the two off-duty soldiers as the men square up to face each other. The bare-chested man you've heard named Lugus, and the smaller man with a shield bearing a grey snail upon it, it seems. You, traveller, will you wager? Says one of the soldiers to you.
Yes. And I spy the man. Who is his opponent?
It is Sir Boris Alton, son of Oris Alton, the old snail. And like they gesture in derision at his banner. He will be crushed by the foot of that brute. Look at the size of him.
Be careful. Old knights know many tricks.
Will you care to put a wager on that, sir? Says Tarn, with that like leering, eager look in his face.
Sure. A silver?
You play rough, sir, say the two men, says one of the men, and the other agrees as they look at you. We were wagering with copper, but if it's silver you wish between us, aye, I'll match it, will you? Aye, says the other man. We'll match your silver then.
Then let it be.
They'll take that as an oath and step back to watch the fight unfold. And the bigger man quickly lunges forward, just in huge, brutal like swings and arcs, battering down at the man clad in grey. He retreats and slimes this way and that, letting the bulk of the strikes that are too strong for the training yard to hammer onto the boss of his snailed shield. And he moves back and back towards the edge closest to you, like where the sides of the square corner. And the mud has kind of been gouged up here. And he's like slipping back and back, and suddenly another one of these brutal arcing, swathing strikes comes in, and he steps back twice and feints. And the larger man like topples into his stride and like comes forward, his knees down into the receiving mud with like a splat, and a few people jeer and even laugh at the larger man's folly. As people are wont to do. And in that moment, the snail quickly strikes forward. His training sword just comes to a gentle rest on the exposed back of the brute before him, and the crowd begin to clap before the larger man can step up and continue swinging. But you catch in that moment, Oster, the man looked like as if he was about to, and the applause of the wagerers and the onlookers perhaps just saved that man's life. And the brood is like steaming, like simmering at this. And the snail will drive his sparring sword down into the mud and extend a hand, which is swatted aside by the brute, who'll go back to his squire and the green banner and silver chalice. The two soldiers will exchange sheepish looks and begin coughing up the coppers between them to match the silver you'd bet, and they'll hand it over to you reluctantly.
Take heart, gentlemen. It's a wedding. You drink for free tonight.
And you at our leisure and with our coin.
I smile that to go and congratulate the snail.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you, he'll say, wiping the sweat from his brow, quite humble in his victory. I thought he had me there.
Oh, a good warrior knows his ground.
It was the only friend I had here, he'll say, looking over at the muddy square.
You did well. Are you in service to someone?
Oh, no. I keep to the road as my father did before me. And he'll like point over to where his tent is, and there's like a wagon nearby that his destrier must pull. My shell, as it were, is my home, and the road, my lord, it seems. But there is some noble blood in my lines, or so father would say, and so I've come here as men are wont to do. Though I think I will move my tent further on away the camp. A good snail knows when to slither away, eh? And he looks over at the simmering giant who's like swiped a towel away from his servant and is barking at him while he like wipes away his own sweat and mud angrily. I've made an enemy there in that one.
Perhaps so. But let you not slither without company. Join me this evening.
And I will, sir, if I have your name.
Oster's name.
Sir Boris of House Alton. And the house being the wagon, of course, and he'll give you an endearing handshake.
I shake it. Please join me at my tent.
He'll mark it out and say that once he's moved his own, he'll come to you there at nightfall.
I nod and then saunter once again through the crowd, looking for opportunity.
As evening falls, Sir Boris Alton will make his way to your and Jessica's camp, outskirts of the Bastard's Feast. Inside the castle of Helmcrest, you and the other lords here, Willem and Ronald, are well received. The shields of all noble attendants of repute, your own amongst them, are hung up upon the walls about the great hall, and the twin banners of those to be married hangs down on a field of white, the bloody sea lion of House Manning, and the three stag heads on white and blue of House Harte. And then gird around them on either side the shields of the many guests, leaping naked maidens, emerald chalices, bloody fish, horse heads on fields of green, hedgehogs of the yellow house woad, the snail of Alton and others, who have come in answer of the kindly invitation of Lord Harte. And there's that ruckus and hubbub as so many scores of guests are packed in here in the great hall. Feasting at their tables from great trenchers and mead horns and clay goblets ensorcelled with stags' heads, filled with fine wines brought in from the reach, white to match the fish that's been served in like the entree, serving at the hall here as the last of the guests have begun to file in and take their places on the long tables about you. And there's a chewed conversation going about cross and forth the tables about you. And to add to the noise, minstrels and singers make their way up and down the aisles where it's free, playing music in harmony to their fellows across the table to give a merry, bright and large feel to the welcoming feast here. You can see, but not in great detail, the high nobles at the tables beyond, the families of House Manning and House Harte. Across from you, you can hear braying on Ronald and Willem, old lady Anya Shreve, trying to speak of like the merits and advantages of her young daughter and sole heir to her husband's domain, Anna Shreve, called Horseface by those who are improprietors enough to say so, and you can both see why when the daughter gives sheepish looks, not liking of her mother's extolling of her virtues. Nearby to that, Aunt Beatrix calls across people rudely to both of you, her young nephews, while her deaf husband, Lord Arperwode, winces at every taste of every bit of food next to her. She ignores him and asks, "How is my brother, the old lech? And you yourselves?" And she's doing that inquiring thing that aunts do, but loudly across the first course and in the hearing of so many guests that it's slightly uncomfortable.
Yeah, Ronald is like trying to keep the talk of his father being a lech as quiet as possible. Like, I think it's probably clear that anyone who knows him knows that about him, but even so, it's not a good place to shout it at a wedding. And he'll say, yeah, he's not well at the moment, a little ill. I'm sure he'll get over it soon. Do I know anything about this rant that I could, like, fire back in a sort of way to make her maybe take her tone down?
Well, you know that your father was most disapproving of his own his own uncle's intentions to wed her, and he successfully did, to the second son of Lord Woad, Lord Arperwode. Now he is the heir to House Woad, as the current Lord of House Woad only has daughters.
Mm-hmm.
And but even still, it's such a lowly and menial house, and your father is very and openly scornful of it. And calls her a prickly old wench, and Lord Arper worse things that you won't utter at dinner.
Yeah, he'll sort of think on that for a second and decide to be the bigger man, and sort of smile politely. Yes, he's not been well of late, but he's a strong and hearty man. I'm sure he'll get over it. And how's your husband?
Oh, he is nearly deaf. Unfortunately, the gods have cursed him and blessed me, she says, with her hand over her mouth, which only manages to stop half the people around her from hearing what she's saying. She lets out these thorny words. And you, goodly nephew, you wed? Or you, Wylam, Willem? She'll eventually, like, summon up the memory of your name.
Not yet, Aunt.
Have you found some comely squire then, eh?
More than one, I should say. And I'm here looking for a wife. Maybe one who is a little quieter, less likely to talk quite so loudly at such a public gathering, but nonetheless, he'll sort of be smiling and making fun of her.
They say Lady Honor is quite timid, quiet maiden, and she points over to Lady Anna, Horseface Shreve, garbed in like red and green silk. Her mother next to her, heavily laden and caked in like makeup and cold eyes, like speaking to the people about her.
I suppose, yeah. Well, quiet is one thing. There are other virtues that I would look for in a wife.
Youth, beauty. Speaking of which, how is your dear stepmother?
She's well and young and beautiful, he'll say with a look that says, unlike you.
How good. My brother must be so pleased.
He is indeed. Lucky to find love so late in life.
Indeed, and she'll like put an arm around Upper, and he'll look about like questioningly and like mouth some words, which like she'll ignore and say, "Oh, look!" And the next next part of the feast is brought out: roast beef, hunks, spiced mutton that have been turned on spits all day and marinated with spices and crusted with salt and crushed nuts. And around it, great moats of roasted vegetables, potatoes, carrots, parsnips, turnips, onions baked in gravy, which is poured over it by servants clad in white, blue, and red at your leisure, and they'll all step back. At the end of each table, there are great loaves that are brought up and great bowls of butter and honey, and everyone's drinks are refilled as they wish with either mead or wine.
I'll just like lean over to Ronald and say, "Should we go and greet the hosts? What's to be done?"
At some stage
thank
in the
them.
evening, I would say yes. It's quite busy at the moment. Would it be normal to like go and say hello to the Lord, or is it like with this?
Yeah, it would be, but it's a weird thing where if you're like too lowly of station, it's actually like affronting or like improprietous to do.
Yeah,
You have to like know your place, and certainly like someone lowly like Boris Alton or other kind of knightly men who have come here would not deign to disturb the Lord at his dinner or the other guests.
yeah,
Whereas like someone of a higher station, like definitely Swan Song and like House Grayle, you think are standing enough that it would be welcomed publicly if you would go.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll say then maybe we give it a few minutes so he can eat. The course has just been brought out, and then when he's had his fill, we can wander over and say hello.
Very good. I might can I just like look up to that table? How far away would it be? Can I like make eye contact with I guess I wouldn't know which daughter is which, would I?
Roll perception.
Yes, sir. 15.
Yeah, you can see, as you would imagine, they're seated by station and rank, so it's quite easy to locate people based on what you know of the house's hierarchy. You can see there Lord Gerald and Lady Ella Hart, and next to them their daughter. On the guest lordly side, to the left of Lord Gerald, there's Lord Arthur Manning and his two sons sitting by station. The taller, warriorly Sir Kevan, and the hunched, scrawny, raven-haired looking Darren. Who is not anointed like same as yourself. About them, you can see other knights of repute, including the one they call Sir Eaton Hogg of House Hogg, and he sports the boars of his house upon fields of green in his like garb. And you can see others of note sitting up there as well. Lord Piper's son, Beric, is there, and you know well that he's a rival of your older brother. From their days of warding and of tourneys in the past. Also sitting up at the high table is the son of Lord Mooton, Sir Stephen Mooton of Maidenpool, who has come south for the wedding and graced Lord Harte's hall. So there are those folk aforementioned that are all seated at the high table, and then under that there are the lesser lords and knights, including yourselves.
Okay. So was the younger daughter Lady Aline?
Mm-hmm.
Is she there?
Yeah, she is, and she appears as you can see in my overlay.
The shortest one?
Yep, next to her father and mother there. She's just come into had her 18th name day recently, though appears younger in visage as that, whereas her older sister, who you know is only older by 2 years, has an older, more womanly look than a younger sister, and she seems well comfortable at this feast, that you wonder if it's a pretense as it's so enforced and constant. Eileen looks more sheepish and reserved and self-aware, measuring, it seems, her like hand movements and her responses and things like that.
Okay. I'll, if I can, make eye contact with her and smile.
She'll return it in an instinctual way at first, and then in a more manufactured, like artificial, noble way, return it and raise a glass in your direction.
I'll do the same.
You see her turn to her mother next to her and begin like speaking, and you see the mother look a moment later and then look back to her daughter, obviously discussing your heraldry and trying to ponder who you are.
Would it be, are people wearing their sigils sort of thing?
Yeah, whether by brooches or on their cloaks or in their like the stylings of their colors or whatnot. Yeah.
I guess I've got a signet ring, but yeah, maybe we would be wearing like tabards as well.
Mm-hmm.
Just the colors. Yeah. Okay.
At
Well,
that, you see people about you who are pushing back their plates, finished now with this course, and the servants coming to collect it, and you and Ronald spy your moment.
Seeing that, like Ronald will give a quick nod to Willem, and then stand and try and like make his way there with the least amount of being stopped by other people, because I imagine it's like being at a house party and you're trying to get from the kitchen to like the smoking area, and everyone's like, "Oh, how's it going?" Blow non-stop, along the way, and so he's trying to like keep focused and get to the table before someone else gets there.
Yeah, I'll like we'll stalk through the guests together. I'll like sort of let you lead. Stand like at your shoulder.
Greetings, my lords, Lord Preston's sons. Come, come, and Lord Gerald will push back his current course and move his cup aside.
Most gracious, thank you for your hospitality. The feast has been spectacular.
It will be dwarfed by tomorrow, by tomorrow's events, I am sure. And he'll like gesture and like push your attention toward his daughter and her to be seated nearby.
I have no doubt. And there's to be a great hunter here as well.
Indeed, I myself shall go with my son-to-be and his kith. We shall all of us resolve old wounds, hunt. A good thing for men to do together, and leave these preparations and other business to the women, eh?
That's right, my lord.
Very fitting.
Indeed, you are most welcome, my lords. I look forward to seeing you upon the morrow for the hunt and the nuptials. Your father did not come himself?
He is unwell, my lord, unfortunately. Brief.
So early in his own new matrimony, the gods are cruel.
Indeed. It'll pass, I'm certain. He's a strong man, and both in mind and in body.
And your noble mother, trust she prospers.
She does. And he'll like look in the direction of the others at the sort of table and like give them all a nod and like give a sort of a chin up nod towards Piper. Sort of friendly, but also like in that sort of swaggery way.
Yeah, he'll return it pretty close to a mimic of it. The man next to him, Sir Eaton Hogg, with his hogshead brooch, will give you kind of a scrutinizing look and a raised eyebrow of like assessing worth. Lord Harte will give a like return a bow to you as he like gestures with his hands to his wife and introduces her, Lady Ella, and she like jiggles as she smiles and extends a hand for you to kiss and welcomes you in like a high squeaking voice. You catch Willem in your periphery an eye roll from her eldest daughter Sylvie, who's quite strikingly beautiful and appearing quite dismissive of the Manning men who sit at the side of her Lord Father's table.
My lord and lady and the rest of you. May I introduce my brother, Willem, and he'll like make a just really brief look at what's she called? Ely?
Eileen, yeah, she'll look up or change her gaze from you, Ronald, to Willem at that, and she'll look to her mother and her mother back at her. As I'll wait for you to step forward at introduction, Willem.
I'll step forward and do a low bow. Say, you honor us with invitation. I offer more apologies on behalf of our father. He is far too sick to ride.
Indeed. He is forgiven, of course, and we are well thanks of your in receiving you. And he lets that sentence linger as if he expects some word or token of your father's apology.
Yes, indeed. Well, as I say, he himself could not make it, but he has provided a gift so that or to show his enthusiasm for this union and his apology for his inability to make it this particular time.
A horse, says Sylvie in a sweet, poisonous voice, and Kevin stops at his food. A horse, he says excitedly.
It is a fine mare, indeed.
Ah, and her breed, says Kevin, and Sylvie kind of just gives looks like, well, what am I going to do with a mare?
Do I know what breed it is? I guess I would.
A cold-blooded
Cold-blood?
horse, like one that
Yeah.
you could breed with pedestrians or workhorses.
Yeah, it's a pretty good gift, right? Like it's
Yeah.
Yeah. Horse is like one of the most expensive things you can have, right? That's only sort of like jewelry or like super fine worked arms.
Yeah, it's a dappled grey. Cold bloods are the ones with the massive like shaggy hooves. You could breed with them to make destriers. Yeah, a fine gift indeed, which seems evident by Kevin's reaction and Lord Harte, who like nods approvingly. Sylvie, it seems, is the type you've met noble lasses of this fashion before who cannot be pleased by such mean things, even though you both would know well the worth of a beast like this. It's no small token, for sure.
Yes, indeed. My father was keen to ensure that you understood that he desperately wished to be here, but only for the sickness that has struck him down briefly. He could not make it, but nonetheless, he wanted to be sure that you understood how sad he was not to be able to make it.
My thanks to him, if you'll give them, says Sir Kevan, and he'll stand to extend a hand to you. You have spurs, Sir Ronald. Tell me, will you accompany me on the hunt tomorrow?
Certainly, I'm keen to.
And you, and he goes to say sir, but then does not see like spurs or anything knightly upon you and says, Lord Willem, will you hunt?
Indeed. I shall.
Good. My brother Darren might be much thankful for some tutelage in this regard. Hey, Darren, he'll like nudge his brother, who looks uncomfortable at this, the revelations of his shortcomings. Perhaps our brothers should accompany each other and we and foster goodwill. If that is your father's wish, let it be so, says Kevan.
I would like that very much. What is there to hunt in these parts?
Oh, we have much wild game. There is the fabled white hart, jiggles Lady Ella. There are boars and other stock in the woods. They are well kept by my husband's men. They always bring back such finery for our tables, fowl of all sort. We have them honeyed with the feathers on, she says, and Lord Arthur's kind of like trying to calm her with his hand and says, yes, these grounds have much yield, especially at this time of year. I'm sure that there'll be much competition amongst the noble ranks to see who can gather most for the feast table tomorrow night.
Indeed. Boar, you say, and the fabled white hart. Hard to find, these hearts?
It is said, says Lord Harte, repositioning himself in his chair, that only those of heart blood can find and hunt the stag. There has not been a showing of one these past years, and not in my time. Though my father, Warren, he spoke of it. Perhaps it will come again, a good omen for my daughter's nuptials. And he gives a smile to his daughter of one of a father, and like happy at this prospect of his daughter and the man beyond. And Sylvie like smiles one back. You can both roll a insight check at that.
That's a crit.
Oh shit, mine's 5.
24.
Yeah, it's like well practiced by her, and she's well skilled in expression, being noble woman. And so it works on you, Willem. But you're proof against it, Ronald. Maybe you've seen these looks before, or you've seen them in Janus and been wondering, Lady Janus, your stepmother, and been wondering on them of late. But either way, you see the falsity entire of her a look back as she raises her cups and smiles like, oh, I'm just so happy at the bride-to-be. But yeah, it's fake and it's false. A pleasantry, a shadowy pleasantry.
That's to be expected, I suppose. Most marriages are that way when they start in Westeros. Nonetheless, I'll say, well, if it's only the hearts who can find them, then I'd best stick close by some of your blood, I think. That would be quite a sight to see.
Indeed. We should hunt together, son-to-be, says Lord Gerard. And Sir Kevan raises his cup. If it is your wish, father, and he'll incline his head. And in between them, Sylvie smiles sweetly, though you see, Ronald, that it's sweetly sour.
Yeah. Yep, and I imagine like you can like feel the shakes and the tension coming off Kevin when he tries to say father. It's a weird moment for anyone to go through, especially here publicly in front of other knights and things like that. But nonetheless, he'll sort of like nod and smile at the pleasantries and say, well, I won't keep you too much longer, your lordship. Thank you again for your hospitality, and I look forward to the hunt. Hopefully we'll see you then.
My thanks, and well met the both of you. Give my regards to your father. Indeed, we'll see you at the hunt on the morrow. For now, enjoy the fare and drink. And he'll like nod from his chair as you go off, and Lady Ella will jiggle and smile and wave as you walk off. And at that, Willem, you can catch a glimpse with Eileen, who's been watching you from the corner of her eye and now regards you in full. Welcome, sir. I saw you look across the court toward me, that we might have known each other in youth, but I see you are a stranger.
Yes, I thought something similar, but we cannot have met, I think.
Your sigil I recognize well, I know, from our tutelage at the Rookery. You are the Grayles.
That is right, the Grayles of Swansong.
She'll lean forward at her table now that her mother's descended into a talk with her father next to her, and she'll speak in a quieter voice. Where Sir Eaton, he and his ilk have no high regard of you and your kin. They speak of the trident, of the black swan, of the banners turned to the Targaryens. Think it not fitting that such folk be in the halls of those favoured by King Robert, though most of what he says is, well. And she looks to his sigil and then back to you and doesn't say pig shit, but you can see like the noble jibe.
Yeah, I smile at it and say, that is long past. Should be left in the past.
You had no sword belt to hang upon the wall with the other men, and you wear no spurs. Do you forsake the teachings of the warrior?
Nay, by no means, but, and I sort of shrug slightly. I did not think it would be needed here. Far better to be comfortable, if it is just feasting to be done.
Oh, there will be much of that, and more. Tell me, have you been ordered here? I have, she says, answering for you. Mother parades and sports me here. I'm to wed one of those men. She looks across to the knightly table where you can see the various knights and young hopefuls like arrayed, like strutting cockerels.
Is that the table where we've been sitting?
Nearby to that, it's where your brother was casting looks and gestures and such to young Lord Beric Piper and some of the other men there. Men that you don't like kind of hang around with at things like this.
I'll ask, has any caught your eye? And smile again at her. Like, look at making eye contact with her.
Yeah, she like looks across them, surveying them and kind of forcing you to do the same, and you just see them at wanton like feast and drink and leering and eyeing at serving folk as they go past, and acting in like the entitled fashion that you'd imagine with men of their station. The crone has not lifted her light and her lantern to guide me in this yet, she says, but it's like a jesting tone.
Who did our father give us like a, what would you call it, like the like note to ask if we could marry?
Yep, he gave it to you and Ronald. He had Master Grubuk draw it up for you.
Would it be proper for me to present that to like her father or something?
Yeah, that's who it's addressed to. It would be improper to give it to anyone else other than, say, his steward or maester.
Okay. Shit, I should have just done that a second ago.
You'd know here that the maester and the steward are one and the same, Maester Hampden.
Yeah, that's right.
You could find him here at this feast, or being close by could go back to the Lord. But yeah, it's kind of like, fuck, I missed my moment to do that.
Yeah.
You have it in your hand, but you're already like knee deep into the conversation.
It's a bit awkward to go back, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I guess I'll just say, I am under similar orders from my father.
So you know my burden, sir.
I do. Perhaps it would be easier if we shared it.
A fine way to solve a problem, she says.
I'll smile and ask if there's going to be dancing later.
Mayhaps tonight, though, who can tell? Most of the men folk seem well in their cups, but tomorrow certainly all will be dancing. I will pray for guidance from the crone. Those who seek me might find me at her house.
I shall look for you.
She goes to speak, but you hear a bell toll and people begin moving around to take away plates and bring out the next course. Wheels of sharp, pale cheese, great platters of grapes and shrunken apples, and a red Dornish vintage is brought out for the high table first, and then others in great clay pots thereafter, poured out and stains splashed down to mingle with the many others, and people will raise their cups in toast to Lord Harte's generosity and to the pending nuptials of the pair. Could I get a perception check from yourself, Willem?
It's an at 1, so it's 4.
As you're making your way from Lady Eileen to join your brother, where he's walked down past the men, you hear a slight not commotion, but the noises of someone at the high table's chair grinding back, the cutlery going forth in front of them, and then stand up. The movement catches your eye, and the sound turns your head. You see Lady Sylvie stands up, which causes many of the men and knights about her to stand up in observance, and she will smile sweetly and say that her appetite is not so grand and she has feasting that must be done tomorrow, and that she will not keep the men from their hunt, and so retire, and all will wish her well and shout out and cheer as she will hastily make her leave from the place. And soon thereafter, the general conversation and hubbub and entertainment and feasting will rise up to its previous level.
I'll hurry back to sit next to Ronald, sit down and say, "Shit, I had the writ. I should have given it to the Lord just now. What? Ah."
He'll sort of shake his head sort of slowly. Can't really go back now, can we? Maybe after we go on the hunt and we find one of these white hearts, or we catch a boar, something impressive, that's a better time to give him the offer.
Yeah, maybe that's so. I hate this, the constraining propriety of it.
You're a lord, Willem. It's all propriety. The only part that isn't is on the battlefield, and that's not somewhere you're familiar with yet.
Feel preferable to this at times.
At least you know who the enemy is.
Indeed. I'll relay what Eileen said about eating hog, talking ill of us.
Now that makes sense. He's friends with Piper. Piper's always been jealous of my ability, eh?
I guess that is it. Any old excuse for to discredit us.
Must be. Let's make sure that we do well tomorrow in this hunt, and let's make sure that you kill a boar.
Ah, well, yes. Seems easy enough. I brought my lance.
Easy. He'll before you can even make a joke. It's not easy. Be careful.
I've seen it done.
Yeah, seeing it is different. People die, even knights. And you're an
True
idiot.
words have not been said. Careful you do not find yourself amongst them, says Piper from behind you.
No, indeed, I don't think it'll be a boar that undoes me. Nor a musician.
Yes, if they keep doing so, they may be in for me. How have you been?
Not so bad, you.
Better. I hear you're to hunt tomorrow as well.
Yes, indeed.
Care to place a wager?
Well, I suppose better had.
I wager my trophy will be grander than yours, as it was in the tourney of Meriton last spurn, if you recall, and you do recall.
Yeah, it's all I can recall. Every night before I go to sleep. All right. I accept.
He won't dishonor you by forcing a handshake or anything like that upon it. He has this way of being a bastard and a rival, but he's also quite observant of politeness and such.
Yeah.
It's probably how he gets away with a lot of the talk that he doles out to you and others.
Yeah, and in a way, he's an arsehole, but I also quite like him. It's like a friendly rivalry most of the time. I really hate him, but also kind of admire him a little bit.
It will be our only sport. God's not kind here.
No, indeed. It's why I'm so keen to go on the fucking hunt.
They say they're old beasts in these woods, and of course they're the superstitious talk of folk. There's that as well, but the woods are broad, and they border with those of the Lord of Antlers. These woods, this time of year, it will be good, he says, in not like a noble, airish kind of way, in the way of a man who does know his hunts.
Now there should be some interesting things to catch. Should be a good contest.
And a celebration to mark our success tomorrow. I will find you and be expecting the coin, of course.
Well, just have yours ready, just in case I surprise you.
And he'll step on his heels at that, raise his cup, and go to make his way back to the table, dismissive of you, Willem, as he was last autumn.
You know I hate that fucker, said to Willem.
It's difficult to tell sometimes. Speak as old friends.
Yeah, we are old friends, but I hate him.
Yes, never even barely looks at me.
Yeah, he's like that. And you're easy to miss.
I look down at myself.
What do you think of
sorry, again.
What do you think of your bride to be?
She is not loathsome, that's for sure.
Not loathsome at all. Lucky.
No. Yes, she has some wit also. She is perceptive.
The Father has blessed you in a major way.
Yes. So it would seem. I say, used to everything going my way all the time. Just getting everything I want.
Well, that's lucky. I have been less lucky, I think. And he'll look across to Horseface again and then back at Willem.
Yeah, she'll smile, revealing her bucked teeth at you. It's genuine, beautiful, ugly smile.
I suppose it could be worse.
It could be. And nothing is set in stone. You have no rate of request.
No, but Father wants one, quickly. That's me to come here and find someone, and there's good land to be had there at the very least.
Indeed. It's not like you have to live with her. I say, saying what you said to me.
Yeah, he'll laugh at that. He's very good at giving out advice and very bad at following it. It's very much like a do as I say, not as I do situation.
Meanwhile, across the moat, where evening has fallen, and there's campfires and bonfires that dot the various camps, and where your own pavilion has been set up. The men now are dicing or at knuckle bones, drinking sparingly in their cups and eating of the food stores that you've brought here, and come to join your fire as he says he would. Jessica and Oster. Sir Boris will stride up, now dressed in comfortable gear, his sword at his side, but his grey armour and snail shield foregone in lieu of a wine bladder that sloshes with the promise of a sour wine. And he'll come to join you and just in hello say gifts, gesturing at the other wine bladder, and he'll sit on the log that you hewed, Jessica, alongside you and Oster, and pass it out and to warm his hands by your fire.
Yeah, she'll smile and shift over, making room, gladly accepting the drink and raising it in thanks and in cheers.
Sister, I present Sir Boris Olton. The snail, how did you acquire that nickname?
Oh, it was our sigil, my grandfather's.
Sir Boris, pleased to meet you.
And you, young maid.
She just kind of chuckles to herself at that as she takes another sip of the wine and looks around, quite distracted, looking at everyone else and seeing what they're up to and seeing who's here. And
Yeah, the two soldiers who come with you, Tan and Dirk, they're like playing at dice or knuckle bones, and the Wayne driver and is like just seeing to the camp, going about minor chores to like busy himself to ward off ire. And Sir Garen's squire, Daleb, is just scouring mail and seeing to weapons and horse.
Forgive me, Sir Alton, but you drink with bastards. I hope that does not sour your wine.
I've drunk with people of all sorts in my travels about my realm. And it is those interesting folk that I was told by my father before he died to hearken to most. So here's to him and this. And he'll unslug the wine and take a drink in remembrance of his father, the oldest snail, and pass the bladder around.
Yeah, I take it and pull back a draft.
You are an author, friend, he'll say, pointing to your thumb and forefinger as you take the bladder and seeing like the ink stains there.
Yes. Yes, I tend to write many pages, mostly in the service of my lord. Much needs to be attended.
I'm sure. I believe you, sir, he'll say, smacking his lips with the back of his hand.
How about
ask
you?
Ask him about his autobiography, Jess says with a cheeky grin as she takes another sip.
He'll raise an eyebrow at that just for a moment to say, "Oh, I can read and make my mark as well as any man, though I'm no scholar or the likes of Maester Hampden."
Well, it seems you have chosen a profession that suits you.
It's kept me alive, a wise decision, but no small part. It's of my father and grandfather's forging. The way of a knight is not always easy, but if one keeps his head down and keeps moving, he can avoid the greater troubles of strife. And at that, he'll smile to you, Jessica, and take the bladder of wine back.
What brings you to Helmcrest?
If I'm honest with you, both, and the fire, promise of drink and food, of shelter and good cheer and company for a time, before being back to the road. As an anointed knight, it is my right to seek hospitality at a marriage in this realm. I observe the old ways people of my ilk must, eh?
A hunt, Jess asks eagerly, noting that it was missing from his list of reasons. Is there to be a hunt?
The likes of me have nothing to contribute there. I'm good at keeping my head down and my shield up, though stalking wild beasts in their own affairs, not a task I would eagerly take up. There'll be food enough from the larders, whether the hunt is successful or not. Mark it well, there's a boar, I'm sure, already being prepared for the kitchen, whether the Lord brings back his catch or not. And he does not need me stumbling over in the taking of it, and he'll smile to himself about how shit of a hunter he is by taking a drink.
I second that, Sir Alton. The mere mention of a hunt makes my sister's boots magically muddied.
It's not for everyone, but I can't get enough of it.
So who will you go with? Will you attend your lord on the hunt?
He can try and stop me. I'm sure one of my lord brothers will oblige, as they have done in the past. Though I hope that being outside of our own castle this time and being hosted at another will not change that. But they can try and stop me.
Sir Boris will look as you're taking the wineskin off him. He'll look to the bracelet that hangs from your wrist that has a little wooden carved falcon attached to it. Did you make that yourself, girl?
Aye, do you like it? She says, holding it out and yeah.
Fine work. You've scrimmed here. Fond of falcons, are you?
They're the best beasts, the best birds.
And the most costly of beasts. None of my house can ever have claimed to have a falcon.
They're just smarter than ravens, right? They can fly free. They're hunters themselves.
Do not discount ravens. The Lord of Helmcrest certainly does not. Master Hamon's rookery is famed throughout the Crownlands. He breeds ravens, they say, to trade for his lordship with the other lords who call this domain their home. They are much prized and of good stock from what they say upon the road, and word on the road is usually close to the truth.
Really, she says, her eyes going up toward the top of the castle, scanning to try and see if she can spot where the rookery would be.
Yeah. 2 silver stags for a chickling is what I've heard that they are sold at. No meagre price for a raven, but they are well learned and of good craft in the Maester's mysteries.
She whistles appreciatively, but then just looks over with a sheepish grin, or a cheeky grin. Still could not outsmart a falcon, I'm sure, she says, taking another swig.
Oh, I wouldn't be so sure, though. I'm not a wagering man. And he'll take the wineskin to pass on again.
Though you did challenge that brute of a man, you must have had some idea of how that fight was going to turn out.
I've heard there's to be a tourney in the capital in the coming months. I thought it prudent to test in the training grounds in safe-ish situation, test out my possible opponents. I learned much from those that I tested against and lost little.
Wise.
I'll take some bruises and cuts, but more importantly, I'll take the memory of their stance, their position, their skill at arms. I'll remember my bouts with the dancing maiden and the emerald chalice, as I remember the others, as I was taught. We must all of us learn, even from the enemy.
Yes, indeed, as I take another swig of the wine.
I saw some of the men passing coin to you. I can only presume that you wagers upon me, so I take it you are a gambling man, sir.
Occasionally. But like you, more of a gatherer of information. That's my traffic.
Indeed.
Gesture says absently as she's sort of swirling the wine in her hand. Swans eat snails, do they not?
I suppose they do, says Orton. But that's worrying. Lions eat stags, and then he'll take a big drink of the bladder.
And dragons eat them all.
Laughter into the welcoming fire that you sit around. The next morning, the great horns are blasted out by trumpeteers at the parapets of Helmcrest, and the hunting parties set out in their groups. There's much attendance and servants that fall in around those nearby to you, Willem and Ronald. And Jessica, your younger half-sister, finds you with all of the needful gear outside of the stables where so many are thronging. There's a great hoot and cheer that goes up at the trumpet's call to let the horn commence, and in gallant ritualistic manner, Sir Kevan and the Lords Harte and Manning give fanfare and waves to the maidens beyond, and leave the women folk to their duties as they pour out with like the dogs baying and horses whinnying, thundering down the paths out of Helmcrest and towards the looming west woods. Half of the hunters make their part at a fork in the road which leads to Arrow Ridge, while the rest push on deeper to the edges of the west woods, which stand as great, providing a boundary between themselves and the Lord of Antlers beyond. At that point, you're come across a choice, Sir Ronald and Willem, where you will take the high ground and the ridges beyond and seek deer and herd stock, or if you will chance the forests and go for boar into the westwood. And Jessica, I guess, chance with choice of who to go with of your older brothers.
Ronald's concern would mostly be like, what's the most impressive thing to bring back? And he thinks all of the impressive things will be in the woods as opposed to like kept. And so if we go into like the woods themselves, you might find a boar, or some tiny chance of finding like something unusual, like a great cat, or like a wolf, or like one of these hearts or something like that, and so he's really mostly concerned with like bringing something impressive back. So he would probably lean towards going to the woods, but he's not as good a hunter as Jess is, so he would just sort of state out loud that he wants to bring something impressive back.
What do you think, Jess?
I know the forest's better than any other terrain. The Wilderwood at home, spend so much time there with Haley and Hap. She would have told them at some point, told her brothers of the stag and the sort of, was it like a bobcat? It's like the smaller version of a shadow cat that
wildcat, yeah.
A wildcat, yeah. Would have told them of that. I'm sure there'll be white hearts, boars aplenty. That's my vote.
Was everyone going like armored, or like what's everyone hunting with? Like of the other lords that rode out.
They'd go out in like finery, but not armored. I would say in like riding gear with spears and bows and daggers. And I think the men on foot with the hounds would have like leathers on.
Yeah, okay.
And have long spears and bows, mastiffs, and wolfhounds.
Cool. So I think the forest then.
Yeah.
So that means so Willem and Darren Manning and some others will go to Arrow Ridge. Or is your intent to stick all together?
I thought that was sort of... Are we meant to split up and all hunt individually, or what's the...
It seems like Kevan was intending to hunt alongside Sir Ronald and their followers together, and he wanted you to take Darren hunting to teach him what you know of it, because you carried yourself such that like you're a bit of a huntsman yourself at dinner last night.
Yeah.
And he wants to foster that in his younger brother.
Oh, okay, right. So I guess maybe us three will go, and then Ronald and what's his name will go together.
Kevin.
Ronald, Kevin, and Jessica.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, sure. We could do that.
And you guys will go up into the hills. Okay.
Yeah, just me and...
loath to leave Willem on his own, but... Yeah, okay.
You could give word that you want Oster to go with him, though as when he'd spoken to you last night, it didn't seem like he was going to be going on the hunt at all.
If my lord commands it, I will. That includes Willem.
Yeah, I guess it's a question of like, if you're like a bit of a bookworm, like I don't think that it's like
I would not. Yeah, I wouldn't. It's not my choice. Right. Yeah, to go do it. Yeah,
like a family dinner and everyone's playing footy, and it's like you're asking the little nerd to come out and play. I think. I think it's fine. I'll just like give Willem like a look and remind him what we talked about last night about like that it's not a joke and like this stuff is dangerous and to be careful before sort of puts his hand on the shoulder, gives it a squeeze, and then we'll ride off with Kevin.
Yeah, okay. I will have put on my mail shirt like under my finery, so it's not like too obvious, but like as a result of your precautioning last night, thinking of boar's tusks.
So at the fork, you part ways. You going with Darren, the younger brother of Sir Kevin, Willem, and some other hunting retinue up to the hills and across Arrow Ridge, hunting for deer. While you, Lord Gerald, Sir Kevin, and Jessica head into the westwood, Sir Ronald, with your attendees. Another group parts way from yours once you're under the canopy of those old woods. And Sir Beric Piper, Sir Eaton Hogg, and Sir Nathan Lugas will make their own hunting party and push south in contest, in playful contest with your own. As he'd said last night, Boris Alton and many others do not partake in the hunt. though most of those noblemen of age who have come here will do so. And so the woods are crawling with the barking of hounds and the calling of horses to one another, hunting horns, coordinating the movements and positioning of different parties, and just a general thrum in the air of excitement and intense eagerness.
Knowing how effective Jess is in this sort of place, Ronald will like let her lead the situation. He's like not too proud to know that he's not great at this and that she is, and so he'll just kind of like look to her every now and then of like, you tell me, I'm just here to kill the thing when we find it.
Yeah, and each time she would happily lead the way or point things out, or say point out the long root trees and that it's best to sort of go around them. Because otherwise they'll just slow you down, or the way to direct your horse to step through them so that it doesn't slow you down so much. Little bodies of water and streams, and maneuvering around them to try and find the tracks to sort of start the hunt, find some evidence of some kind of beasts. The type.
Give me a survival check.
Yeah. All right, so not the die. Sorry, just double checking whether that's advantage or +5 because it's different. So advantage, cool. They're both 13s. So that's an 18.
You can see that nearby the water foxes, 3 of them passed through here, probably last night or in the early hours of this morning. But further ahead, it's plain to see the great gouge marks and like rutting gouges of a boar that must be male, by like the chipped bark and like scratched markings on the base of roots that gnarl and spiral down towards the one of the many streams of this that like kind of line down this ridge.
She would point those out to Ronald. See the gouges in that tree there? I think she would actually take the opportunity to try and make it more of a learning experience, but knowing that it might come across as like, if he doesn't know, then he'll look the fool, but she'd do it anyway. What do you think made those? Note the height and the depth.
He looks around for a second and then sort of squints his eyes a little bit. Boar, she says with a grin. And Nico, I can learn the exact number and sizes of beasts that we're tracking and how long ago they passed through the area, with forest as my favoured terrain.
Oh, cool. Yeah, 3 foxes 4 hours ago heading west to east, or heading east, I should say. They've come in from the west. And then further north into the woods from where you are here, that's where the tracks of this quite large boar, I shouldn't say quite large, probably the largest tracks you've ever personally spied, head north. There's no other tracks around it, which it's not a sow with litter, and most likely like a rutting male.
He's a big boy. Looks like he scared some foxes, I think, over to the west, but he's gone north. Let's go.
Trophy big?
Indeed. Oh, yeah. And a fine thing for my daughter's table, calls out old Lord Gerald, and Sir Kevan gives like a hurrah to his men, and one of the dogs will like yip in with the chorus.
Excellent.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, they'll spur their horses, and the men will like chase to catch up with the barking dogs as they set off after it.
And Jess winces a little bit at the noise being made. She likes to hunt more stealthily than this.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like all of you working people and the dogs go up ahead and like do all the main work, and then at the end the lords come in while the animals are battered and finish them off triumphantly to bring them back to the approving noble women. It's quite a show, but at least it's an exciting one for your type. Meanwhile, up on Arrow Ridge, Darren is sullen, silent, and sunken into himself. Willem and the other attendants about make no business of like breaking that silence, and they're looking to the woods about as well, seeking for game. The hounds here are largely quiet about you, and I guess loudest would be the clop of your own mounts nearby to each other. You've both been kind of forced in a way by elders into this, kind of like being forced to play together with the other wards when you were children.
I'll sort of be trying to lead the party to sort of continue going like uphill, so that we can kind of see where we've come from, so we don't get lost by going into some huge, crevasse or something. And I'll like start saying as much, and then realize that Darren's closing in on himself, and say, Darren, what troubles you?
Nothing, my lord. Nothing. Concentrating on the hunt. And he kind of gives a look around, which is very unhuntsman-likely.
Somewhere you'd rather be?
Yeah, instinctively, you catch him looking back east towards Helmcrest. He rights himself. No, I am well glad to be in your company here, Lord of Hunt. I hope we catch something. And the lie's not even really well tried.
Yes, well, hopefully, I say, sort of like shaking my head at his weird. I don't really understand, like not that it's because it's a hunt, but just like wishing you were elsewhere is not something that I really understand. So yeah, I guess I'm going to try looking for tracks then. If there's no one else here that's trying to track or.
Yeah, there are some like folk, like retainers who have come here to do it. People maybe unknown to you, servants and such. But if you'd certainly be superior to some of them, so you can go down, dismount, and check for your own tracks.
Yeah, cool. Survival?
That's right.
16.
You can easily spot after you move into like a wooded part at the top of Arrow Ridge where there's been bark at about your head height that's been marred off the trunks. You don't smell it, but the dogs do when you like bring their attention to it. The like the smell of stags rutting and like the markings of their territories.
I'll point it out to Darren as something to look for. Stags, it seems.
Perhaps we could catch the Lady Sylvie White Hart, he says, his face like brightening up for the first time since he sat the horse.
How old's this guy?
Probably of an age with you, 16 or 17.
Yeah. I was thinking I was more 18, but
so younger than you then.
Yeah, okay. Can I do an insight check?
What
like,
for?
Does he like Lady Sylvie?
Maybe you could make a persuasion check to make him elaborate on it. I don't know if, like, from an insight check, you could tell what he's like feeling.
Okay, sure. I'll sort of offhandedly, as I like look at the tracks, try to figure out like if I can find some actual good like sort of hoof prints, figure out which way they were going. Or
yeah, you'd find them not too far from the base of the tree that was marked, I'd say, and could follow them from there. It's summer at the moment, so tracks would hold a bit.
Yeah, okay. As I'm doing that, I'll say, yes, do you know Lord Harte's daughters well?
I've not met them long, but one does not need to glimpse the maiden herself to know a goddess when he sees one.
Yes, beautiful indeed. I say, like trying to pretend that I'm not actually interested, and I'm just like being pleasant.
I met them both as I was instructed by my father. I was blessed to do so. Kevin does not know how lucky he is.
Oh, I'm sure he knows he's lucky.
Oh, he drinks and feasts and japes with the other men and goes off hunting. Not a word of his maiden. Nothing but a wave for her. He's a brute. Uncaring of it, unknowing of it, undeserving of it, kicking a stone that like bounces off down into the grass.
Don't make too much noise. I say, wondering at why I would have tried to insight check him when he's such a fool. Yeah, I'm going to try to keep us following the trail, wary of time. The wedding's today, right? Like this afternoon.
This afternoon, yeah. This has been
Yeah.
an hour or so after dawn, or no, probably starting at dawn, I reckon.
Okay, right. So we've got a while.
Yeah, you can track them
wanna-
for some time. Eventually, if you don't spot it, one of the men nearby to you will be like, "My lords, my lords," and they'll point towards where there's movement in the trees, the sparse trees beyond, where at the tip of this ridge, two stags like leaping in and bucking at each other, and the clatter is like echoing out as their antlers intertwine and bits of them crack off and break, and they retract for a moment before clattering together in a clasp of in a cloud of dust, I should say, as they like clatter together again and send out a great echoing noise. The fighting of these two is making them unknowing of the approach of your group, and the man who holds a dog by a hempen twine will like muzzle the thing as it whines low and scratches at the ground, wanting to be released upon the beasts beyond. Careful, lads, you hear one of the men say to the other men with him.
What's to be done?
Darren looks uncomfortable next to you, and he says, "Kevan said you know what you were doing."
Indeed. It's an odd thing though to find them fighting such. Maybe we can come upon them quickly for setting the dogs. Has he got a weapon that he can charge with on horseback with?
Not really. He's got a hunting bow and a long hunting knife. There'd be spears, but not held by you two. They'd be held by the men about you, but you could get them if you wished.
Yeah, I'll call for my lance to be passed to me, and a spear.
Lord, should we set the dogs forth first? We could pepper the stags with arrows first. He's saying it in a way like not to offend your your honor.
We could take shots first. Let's be quick.
He'll heft the spear up to you and then one into the hands of Darren, who looks like he's just been given a live snake. And
Keep your horse right by mine. Ride in together after the arrows stop.
He'll half shake, half nod his head. Meanwhile, the sergeant of the hunt will call out for his men to let a volley fly, and he'll unclip the dog at that, and it will sprint forth towards the rutting males, and 3 arrows will fly. 2 of them will hit, one in each of the stags, but neither is a killing shot as the ground begins to rumble and jump about you as you kick the horse into a canter at the beleaguered, stricken animals before you. I'll just get you to roll initiative, Willem.
Sure. 12. I'll say just before we charge, the hounds, so that the hounds chase them, and then we can chase the hounds if we lose sight of.
Yeah, the hound will be unleashed, and it will rush towards the closest of the stags, which is the most badly wounded from the arrow shots, and it will skitter and rush at the approach of men and dog, heading towards the woods. The other one, less wounded and just incensed, and turns to balk your charge.
I'll try to maneuver our horses so that Darren's not so that he's off center sort of thing, so that I'm more in front, in the middle.
Are you chasing the one that's fleeing or the one that's turning towards you and bang its head up and down?
The one that's baying.
You can go charge it. It will try and charge you too, but you go first on initiative before it.
Sick. I've got a lance as well. I don't know if that's important or not, but it's got reach. Can I just make it a weapon attack?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. 20 to hit?
Definitely.
11 damage.
The spear goes into the side of the thing as it rears up, to intending to smash its antlers down. And in that moment that its hooves are splayed up front, you drive the spear in. This is be the first time I'd say you've charged a living thing and put a weapon into it in this manner. So I was surprised by the force at which you're nearly repelled or driven from the saddle, and your horse would slightly rear and threaten to throw you, but training kicks in and your legs lock and you are held fast to the steed, just as your spear is held into the bucking buck. it will like clatter at the side of you with its antlers. I'm going to roll percentile to see if it goes for the horse or for you, because you're kind of like the one thing in its visage. Below 50 will be the horse. For 10, so it will be the horse underneath you that it will try and gore with its antlers. And driver's side will be a 20 to hit. It doesn't get the charge because you'd moved up to engage it, so it'll just be a simple ram, which will deal your horse 6 piercing damage. And then the deer that was scared by the mastiff will continue running away from it as a couple men engage to like try and track it down and fire arrows and commence to shouting. Darren, not proficient with the spear he's been hefted up to charge in at this stag, will give it his best shot and roll and gets a 19 on the die. Somehow, I guess because it's held in place by you, and he rides up and just with that fearful look will like drive the spear forward. And the way that it's like stepping across, his spear just goes through its belly, and it's ripped by the movement of the beast from his hands as his own horse kind of semi-rears back, and he struggles with life and limb to stay on. And as the deer kind of like spins around, still locked by your spear, the spear that's in its belly wriggles and moves and like eventually loops free with some of its guts and begins to like trip up in itself and eventually falls sidelong, kicking and mewling piteously. It's quite easy for you to stumble over the top of it, pull free your long hunting knife. Darren looks sickened being so close up to this thing.
Yeah, I put like my I come up like hesitantly until I can get a foot on its horns and stay on the like the blunt end of the horns, as it were, and slit its throat. Ha! And Willem's like, he knew it would be fine because everything he does always is, but he was sort of a little like, oh shit, this guy could have got killed just then. Looking at the like battered horse that I was on and say, you see, fine with that spear.
Yeah, yes, he says, looking down at the horror he's made in the thing's belly, and he's ever so glad when you like slit the thing's throat and stop its piteous mewling. We did it, he says, almost believing it. We did it.
I'll move over and like smack him on the back. Yes. Did you not think we would?
Oh, I wasn't. Oh, yes, of course, he says, shrugging off another thin layer of insecurity. And he looks across your shoulder and notices one of the servants rushes up to see to your horse, which is looking back with its harness at the wound in its side.
Yes. My poor horse was not so lucky, but at least it was neither of us. Am I right?
Indeed. My brother won't believe it when I show him this. We could present it to Lady Sylvie.
Had we said that I would present something to?
Nope.
No. I'll say I myself would like to present it to. No, maybe I'll change what I was going to say and say. I mean, we should present it to the Lord. I'm sure it's proper. Right?
Yes, of course, he says, looking down at the thing, regretting it, and looking away from it.
I'll shout to the other men, like, has the other got away?
Aye, my lord, we could not catch it. The trail is there from the arrow that scored it. You can track it with beasts, or see to your kill, my lord, as you wish. Like it's usual that like not noblemen will do the actual field dressing of the thing.
Yeah.
And the dogs are barking at the bloody trail left by the arrow shot deer that got away.
Yeah, maybe I'll do. This horse can still be ridden, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll direct them to just clean this up and like, bag up the trophy, and I'll say we should not let that one bleed out in the woods. It is not right.
The call of the hunting horn beyond draws the attention of man and beast alike looking in a northwesterly direction. It blares again, worryingly. A stricken look comes across Darren's face, threatening alongside the killing of the stag to like make him descend into vomiting.
What does that signify?
It is a call of alarm, my lord, says the oldest of the huntsmen about you, currently carrying out the orders you're given.
They call for aid?
Wonk. Hi, my lord. Sounds like, and he looks around nervously, seeing that only you and Darren are the only ones who have proper horses.
Come then. Someone see to this.
Are you meaning for the men to see to the kill?
Maybe like the main thing of this is like the antlers, right?
As the trophy, yeah, or the head?
Yeah, okay. I'll just like do that quickly, like sever the head, like help the man that had started to do that and just like string it onto my wounded horse and tell the men to follow and I'll move towards the horn. Which it's coming from the west?
Yeah, you can call to towards the direction of which it's like trumpeting from. You can follow the sound. It's like blaring out intermittently now.
Was that the direction that that Ronald had gone?
Yeah, worryingly, looking down the ridge, the way that he'd come, since you were making special note of it, it is consistent with the trajectory of where he'd forked away with his own hunting party. Though the woods are vast and it might not necessarily be Ronald, but worry begins to eat at you.
Can I go there but try to follow this path that we had come on? Or maybe not path,
You try and go down Arrow Ridge, but it require animal handling check to successfully get down there. Darren looks well enough rider, but maybe too inept to go at pace down Arrow Ridge. He was intending to backtrack the way that you guys had come, but
yeah. I think, can we do that? Backtrack and then go back towards the horn?
The men on foot will obviously lag some way behind, and eventually you'll lose sight of them.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So meanwhile, you guys are well shadowed under the canopy of the old Westwood in Heartlands. And Lord Gerald has been in conversation with his one of his huntsmen while a squire leads his horse. And behind him, Sir Kevan has been beaming at you, Ronald, a man who's looking happily towards a married future and seems well contented with his life and his activity at this moment. And he's been in question with you, and sometimes it gets too loud and frequent, and he's politely shushed by his lord father-to-be, as to be silenced a little while the rest of the woods can be heard. Up ahead, Jeska, you've stayed on the trail, and the dogs with you now begin to whine in anticipation, and half it sounds almost in fear that there's no sign of the thing, but it's more recent tracks and gouge marks in some soft side of a gulch, where grubs and roots have been pilfered out of the turned soil there, and you, like the hounds around you, can smell the stink of it, which puts the hair on the back of your neck to standing up.
Yeah, Jess would actually dismount, and once some of the others have caught up and go in for the kill themselves, she knows that she can move much more silently and swiftly by herself through the forest. So she's going to try and sort of see if she can come around and help flank it, or maybe flush it towards them, whichever way it goes.
Cool, give me a stealth check then. And the dogs will stay with the men from Helmcrest while you skirt around to flank what you presume to be its lair looming beyond up its recent trail.
That's a 23 stealth.
Yeah, you're hidden, eclipsed by the woods, and from view from your companions as you drift off into the in amongst the dark trees to seek out the flank of this boar's lair, while the men and the dogs whine and crouch forward. You can hear them now beyond you, Ronald, and that warrior's training that's instilled some measure of instinct in you is pining at you to draw your attention away from the excited and besotted Sir Kevan. And to the competition at hand, while he talks about, oh yes, and she's quite a skilled weaver, they say, and extolling the virtues of his wife to be. You instead hear reveries of, I shall grant the greater trophy to you, Swan. Like Derek Piper's competition still rings in your ears from last night.
Yeah, I'm like trying to not be rude, but I'm also not listening to him anymore. I'm like toning it out. I'm trying to ignore what he's saying so I can like focus on the moment, and like make a good name for myself here. And so I'll be like nodding, and then I'll simply cease nodding, and like sort of like a dog, I guess, when it like sees something in its vision or like senses something, just like be looking in that direction, and like try to breathe more calmly, and like put my hands around the hilt of my sword, or my spear, I guess is what I would have brought here. I wouldn't have brought a sword, I don't think. And like following where I think Jessica might be, and just focusing as much as I can.
Yeah, you can't get line of sight on her now, and there's a moment of worry there as you realise you're surrounded by Manning and Harte men only, and she's obviously slipped off into the woods somewhere, but this is her forte, and you're used to relying on her in this circumstance, I guess. A moment after that, you hear like a yelp cut short from a dog, and then barking, savage, like saliva-laden barking, go up from the hounds beyond, which sets a ripple of worry amongst the mounted ranks about you and stifles instantly the conversation of Lord Gerald to his master at hunt and Sir Kevan to your fine self. "What's that?" says Lord Gerald from behind a raised hand, looking about the woods before him, and some of the men begin to shout out, "Oh, boy!" And you hear another dog yapping and then yelping and whining, and then it's cut short. Jessica, you can hear it happening in front of you, this boar attack, and you've flushed it from where you are into the party coming toward it. And it sounds like it's goring one or more of the hunting dogs beyond, and sets the adrenaline to pumping and coursing through you.
Yeah, instantly, and she's like, shit, 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 as she's readying an arrow in her longbow as she's racing forward, jumping over roots and skidding through leaves, but moving remarkably silently as well as quickly. So her movement speed is 40 feet.
Okay.
And difficult terrain doesn't slow her down while she's in the forest here.
Breaking cover and concealment, you can just like pretty much sprint amongst low limbs and like rise of ground, like just swiftly as an athlete. Begin covering the ground with surprising speed, running towards the sound of yelping dogs and crying men. One of the huntsmen in view of you like is calling out with both of his hands clasped, "Boar! Boar, me lord!" And at that, Sir Kevan turns to you, Sir Ronald, and his smile widens in anticipation. "Boar!" he says excitedly, and he'll call for his own servant to hand him a spear so that he matches you.
Yeah, I'll like raise mine up and I'll shout, "Sing your last!" And just kick my horse. I want to get this thing.
At that time, one of the hounds is like thrown from the underbrush, disemboweled to like sprawl into the mud and grass. And a second later, this great coarse haired boar comes barreling out like a boulder on muscular legs, running straight towards two of the huntsmen. One of them is grasping a spear in two hands, bringing it to bear, and the other is unclipping the leash around the last hunting hound that he still held off. And it will stop barking and savaging and rush forward now towards the boar, unafraid seemingly of the thing's size. And I'll need your initiatives, Jess and Ronald.
Okie dokie. Just making the list here. The boar's not in that list, Nico.
Oh, sorry.
I think now if I paste this into here, it's not going to keep the order properly. It's still there though.
It's
Beautiful.
okay.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, well, you're the first to react. Across from you, Sir Kevan gets handed a spear and raises it and calls out, "Boar!" And you shout, seeing your last, and you're the first to act as chaos unfolds.
Rad. I'm gonna rush forward with my spear, like couch it as if it was a lance. I'm gonna just try and get as much speed as I can and drive the spear into it with the best of my ability. End up taking mounted combatant. So I will have advantage 19 on the die, so probably a hit. Is a spear a D8?
Yep, it's a large beast if that counts with the mounted combatant.
Oh, it's large.
And yeah,
Then I
it
won't
would
get
be
advantage
Okay.
because it's the same size as a horse.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. No worries. Well, I rolled a 19 and a 17, so I think either one of those would hit.
Yeah. It's easy to hit, but by manner of its size.
Yeah, for sure. And so, if I have like a spear I'm using, can I use it two-handed on a horse?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you can.
So a D10 then, is it?
No, it's just a D8 two-handed, D6 one-handed.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry, I always use it the Isclaf way. Okay, 7 plus what's my strength? 3, so 10 piercing damage.
Yeah, the great boar squeals in pain as you thrust the spear, and it's not a killing strike, though you're rewarded with like thick vital crimson that spills out over the haft and down into the weedy grass. The stink of this thing so repellent up close, and like something like fear coursing through you now as you remember your own warning to your brother. You know those tusks can kill even in the dying of a beast like this.
Yep. I'll have my horse disengage and move away as far as I can. So if I moved...
So that means you get opportunity of attack, but not the horse?
If it can reach me, then yeah. I guess I'm up.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, it's large, so it would be able to reach you. So it gets a regular attack, but it misses. It tries to gore the... Well, it would be trying to gore the horse, but it can't, so it'll attack you as you try and go past. But yeah, it's awkwardly poised because of the spear thrust, and it misses you.
Excellent.
The boar at that stage will like chase after you, like rush towards you in the midst of the other men. So at that, the horse of old Lord Harte rears up and spills him down into the grass with of pain as he like thumps down amongst the hooves of his own horse. Sir Kevan's a much more astute rider and has like youthful strength, stays in the saddle riding his horse and will like thunder to meet the boar, though it will hit into him first. I'm imagining you're going to use the full movement of your horse, Ronald, to be furthest away from the boar.
Yeah, so I
Like
would
if
have
you're trying to get
moved
away
up
from
to hit it and then moved as far away as I can from it. It'll probably still be within its distance, I guess.
Actually, yeah, that means you'd be closer than Sir Kevan because he hasn't actually charged yet. So it's just going to charge at the rear of your horse, and it will use its charge if it hits. 14 on the die is probably going to do it against a horse. 19 to hit.
I think I can make it hit me instead, is that right?
Yeah, true.
You get to pick, yeah.
I might die. I'm level 1.
Yeah, the boar's a dangerous thing.
Yeah, fuck, man. Like, it would be a no-brainer in another situation. I think it's going to have to hit the horse because I might die.
Okay. So the tusk does, 8 and 3 is 11, plus the charge is 7, 18 piercing damage to the guts of the horse.
Yeah, I'd be dead.
Holy shit.
I think that kills the horse. Oh no, a war horse is... Oh no, you wouldn't be using a war horse hunting, it'd be a riding horse.
Riding horse probably, right?
Yeah.
They have 13 HP.
Yeah, so it gores the horse and it like spills you from the saddle. Make an animal handling check, Lloyd. Or Dex, your choice to not be knocked prone.
Okay, with animal handling, I'm good at it. 11 in the die plus 2, so 13.
Yeah, so you're spilled prone from your dying, screaming horse as it's gored by the boar. And in that like swirling world of vision of like dust and panic, you can see Lord Harte thrown down to the ground nearby as well.
Yikes.
At that, Sir Kevan is going to charge in at the boar, pell-mell on his horse. 10, which just misses. 10 all up, which just misses the boar. So as it like rounds on your dying horse, it steps aside of like a flailing hoof, which also saves it from Sir Kevin's spear as he rides into the midst of it. At that, Jez, you crest arise and like thrust your way through some undergrowth to come upon the scene where you see like a dead screaming horse. Oh, sorry, not dead, but like a dying screaming horse, limbs flailing, nearby to this bloody tusked boar that has a spear in its guts and is looming over your older brother. And knights and huntsmen are charging in at the thing and calling out. Someone beyond there is like blowing now on a hunting horn, but your vision focuses on the threat.
Yeah, and she's in the zone. She was still, she got over the initial thing of shit as she started racing, and then just before she crested and could see this scene, she heard the screaming of the dying horse, and then as she crested, she hears the horn, and her eyes widen as she just sees the chaos of a hunt. I think probably like unfolding as she's not seen one before. So by virtue of her mobile feat and her favoured terrain, she can move stealthily at 40 feet and remain hidden. So if I can see it now, then I'll stay hidden if that's all right. And
Sure.
she'll just raise her bow and just with a quick raise and pull and release, fire an arrow for a 14 to hit at the boar.
That hits.
5 piercing damage.
Yeah, it
As she
squeals and
pulls for
like
another
wheels
arrow.
down. You'd be known to it now, like it would be aware of you, but you're too far away to be an immediate threat.
Yeah. Actually, I would have got advantage, wouldn't I? Because of the stealth. I don't get any like sneak attack, but let's just see if it would have been crit. It would not have.
Okay. Yes, there's a thunk. The ball's rear and it spins around with a squeal of pain. They will not charge. It will stay where it is in the midst of the fighting here. At that, the huntsman will rush in after his lord's guest, by way of Sir Kevan, and with a spear held in 2 hands, will try and drive it into the neck of the great squealing beast. He gets a 11 plus 3, 14 to hit, which hits. Stabbing it for 5 piercing damage. And the hound that was let slip from its leash will like sprint in and try and pull the beast down for a 17 on the die, 21 to hit. The giant boar will fail somehow the strength save and be pulled prone by the mastiff and take 3 damage. It's bloodied and pulled down prone by one of the hunting hounds. And then it goes to you, Sir Ronald. So I imagine it was like looming over the top of you until it gets thunked by an arrow and then barged into by a dog, which pulls it prone.
Yeah, Ronald will, I guess, roll to standing, and I think at this stage like has to pull a sword because the spear either like he broke or is still in the boar, and so he'll pull his sword and he's going to rush up to the thing with the sword in 2 hands and try and just like end it before it kills more things. He was not he knew they were dangerous, but he did not anticipate it being this dangerous. Not by a long shot. That'll be 10 on the
advantage because it was pulled prone by the dog.
Oh, shit, nice.
Just in case it's a crit.
No. Still going to be a hit though with a 15, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. Alright, so this one is a d10. Oh, nice. 9 plus 3 plus 2, so 14 damage.
Ooh, that'll be easy. It's very bloodied, nearly slain. The sword bites deeply into the side of its neck, and you have to actually put your boot up onto that bulk of the side of the thing to rip the blade free, and it lets up a rainbow of just like a spray of crimson, and like squeals in a gurgled fashion, rounding away from like the sword strike and at the mastiff that's like harrying and savaging it at the side of it, like bearing it down onto the ground. It's not grappled, it's just prone, so it can actually just stand up and will attempt to gore that mastiff to death. For a 15 on the die, which will hit. The mastiff will take 3 and 8 is 11 plus 3 is 14 damage. The mastiff's health is 5. So yeah, the boar just like picks the mastiff up. Both tusks go in underneath, like the line of nipples underneath the dog, heft it up into the ground, and then throw it sidelong into the grass where it doesn't even like whimper or yelp. It's just killed instantly by the massive gutting impact. It will then round bloody tusked, breath steaming, at like the exposed belly of Sir Kevan's horse. That's all it can do for now. So Kevan will bring his own blade down to try and end the thing, but it's a 4 on the die, so 9 will miss. So he swipes again, but the thing sidesteps as he's trying to cut it down before you, Ronald. Jess, you see the fray now is joined by many. You can still get line of sight on the boar by its sheer size, but you know that on a crit fail, you have a good chance of hitting an ally with a ranged weapon.
Yeah, she, all fluid, drew another arrow and just another pull and release. Maybe a moment longer to sort of steady her breath, but she trusts in her abilities with the bow, and she lets fly for 17 to hit.
That hits.
And that'll be max damage, so 11 piercing.
Describe the death of the old tusk.
So that moment where she takes an extra breath to sort of aim and make sure she's in the chaos, not going to hit one of her companions. She watches as the boar just gores this mastiff, and as it chucks it aside and then turns, eyeing off the horse and Sir Kevan. She just lets it. Maybe it starts charging, and then we see from Sir Kevan's view. I think he's still conscious, isn't he? Just this arrow just coming straight through the eye, and the boar just sort of stumbles and slides its momentum, just sliding it forward into building up a bit of a mound in the dirt.
My lord, cry men as I rush over to the prone and grumbling Lord Harte, but he gets up to his feet, no worse for the unsaddling. Sir Kevan will jump from his saddle and rush over to you, Ronald. Are you scored, sir?
Ronald, as the arrow hits, will be sure to smash his sword down into the thing, so that it looks like he's done it, and then stab the sword in and stand up and stretch. Well, I'm mostly unscathed. I can't say the same for my horse. Fortunately, you are well?
I am fine. Apologies that I could not come to your aid sooner. A fine prize for my bride, and she will know full well who brought the thing down. Your horse. I feel so bad of it. Allow me to replace it, sir.
No, I couldn't possibly. It's not your doing. This terrible beast is at fault. I'm just glad it wasn't you or me.
Indeed. A good job all, he says, half genuinely, and then he'll thrust his hand towards you to stop it shaking and engage in a handshake over the death spasms of the boar.
Yeah, and he'll shake the hand back, wishing desperately that he could say, yeah, I'll take the horse, but knowing that it's not acceptable, because he really wants a horse. But he'll shake the hand and be the sort of gracious person he's supposed to be. Pretty pleased with this situation. And he'll shoot a quick look at Jess with a sort of we understand what's happening here. As far as anyone knows, this is my doing.
The Lord Arthur grumbles and rubs at his back as he steps up. A fine catch, son. A fine catch indeed.
It's gone rather well, I think. All things
He'll
considered.
wave off at the man beyond who's blowing on the horn, and that will stop, and he'll turn back to you.
It's a hideous creature. Looks old.
Indeed, a thing near ancient. Something this old should not have such skill. What a prize. It must have been one of the elder things that roam in these woods.
Yeah.
Ugly, but I'm sure the taste will be there. Boar meat is rich, and when prepared well by my chefs, quite a delicacy, my lords.
All the sweeter for having caught it ourselves.
Indeed, though at no small cost. She was a fine beast. You will need one to get back to your lands and your father.
I suppose so, yes. He'll say, sort of wiping some sweat from his brow.
Your father gifted my daughter a fine battle mare to brood. It would not be fitting if I sent his gift-giver back, horseless. You shall take a palfrey from our stables. I would not have you walk back to Swansong, my lord. Not when you've come between me and this ghastly thing, and he'll give the corpse a kick.
It's too kind of you, my lord. Though I will not shame myself by saying no. Thank you.
Well, well, and I look forward to seeing what the others have brought with their own catches. They will have heard that horn from the north side of Westwood down to Arrow Ridge. They'll be coming now, though there's feasting aplenty to be done, just with this alone. It will take more than we have here to bring back this beast.
Huge and heavy. Oh, we will eat. That's for certain. It worked up quite an appetite.
For now, we should quench our thirst, gentlemen, says Lord Kevan, pulling a bladder from his squire's roundsy and offering it between first to Lord Gerald, his father-to-be, and then to you, his new friend, Sir Ronald.
Yeah, he'll take a swig of whatever it is, and like try not to make that sort of like face if it's like strong liquor.
It's not too bad. It'd be watered down because it's hunting wine, so
Yeah.
it'd be quite refreshing.
In that case, he'll take maybe a little bit more than he should, but nonetheless, he's thirsty. Worked up quite a thirst on this venture, and he's feeling pretty good about himself now. Like, this thing is huge, and maybe he'll get a trophy for it.
Yeah, once the huntsmen are done, they'll have the head brought up for inspection by Lord Gerald as he sits under the shade with you guys drinking. I guess, Jess, you're up to your elbows in blood helping the men do this work, while all the glory is shared by the nobles. But he'll present the head, and Lord Gerald will say, once the feasting is done and the remnants are borne away, you shall have the tusks to take back to Swansong, my lord. It is only fitting, and he'll pass the wineskin on to his son-to-be.
Maybe I'll take one and leave one here as a reminder of when our friendship started.
A fine idea, says Sir Kevan. You hear the sound of horsemen approaching. What's all this? Cries out one of the men. You've beaten us to us, rues another, as Sir Stefan dismounts alongside Sir Beric, and they'll make their way towards you guys. Sir Eaton, next to Nathan Lugas, stays mounted on his destrier the longest, before dismounting and walking past the slain boar in a slow, regarding fashion at the size of the thing, to move over into the midst of the noblemen, totally dismissive of the commoners who do the grisly work and toil of the group.
Quite a beast we've taken down here, wouldn't you say?
I would say, says Beric, like with some small mocking in his voice. He'll like throw down something amongst for his squires and men to take to, and stride over towards you, regarding the head that's been put down into the grass before you. And he'll start reaching around into his belt pouch to produce a handful of silver stags. He'll count them out and hand them over to you. We found a vixen and her den, a brood. 13 there were, 13 pelts and that of a vixen. A fine fetch at the market, but nothing striking to hang upon the wall. A man of my word, he'll say, counting out the last silver and handing it over into your bloody gloved hand.
You've always been a man of your word.
Indeed. That'd be nearly enough to buy yourself a new horse. And he'll look as the men are cutting away, cutting up your own beast.
Yeah, he'll nod and he'll go to shake the man's hand, genuinely like trying to be sporting about it.
And yeah, he'll like put his hands on his hips as like his own men go to like their catch and like pile it in with the men. They'll make kind of like a mock short camp here at the moment. And they'll sit in imbibing in the wine and shade as well while the commoners do all the work. One of the men like grunts and sweats while he like cuts and flensers alongside you, Jess. The broad-bellied man opposite of him, who's quite a nimble huntsman despite his size, whistles out Lord Harte rode out one day while he cuts choice parts from the boar that you're taking to. A fine shot, girl. The nobles may prance and sing as they wish, but I saw the fatal strike. Who taught you to shoot like that?
She grins back at him as she works away, their hands bloody. Master Hallis at Swansong? He's a master of hunt there.
Your lord must be well fed of it. Quite a shot.
Thank you. I thank you. And what a glorious reward, having the joy of being able to butcher my own kill, she says with a...
Oh, joy, is that what you call it? He says, struggling against something gristly before pulling it free to throw to the living hounds to eat.
Yeah, she laughs and probably like reaches over with her hunting knife and sort of nicks a tendon that he's struggling against, and he sort of reels back as the weight's pulled free, and then he chucks it over.
All the maidens will sing sweetly of how nice this meat is for the feasting, and then the lords will cock and crow that it was their doing. But I'll make sure that all know at the bastards' feast who'd caught their fare this day. Mark my words, girl.
That is right. I'll hold you to that. I'll be there at the bastards' feast myself.
I will pour you a cup, one huntsman to another.
I'll be glad of it. What was your name?
Aaron.
Thank you,
My
Aaron.
dar worked for the master of horse before me.
Do you know how to use a bow?
I would say so, but it might be folly in your presence, lady.
Well, we'll be staying here for a short time at least. Perhaps we can have some practice at the archery targets.
He raises up a bloodied hand at that. The Lord has commanded that there's to be no archery or melee, nor jousting at this wedding. Word from the king, he leans in, whispering the word, as if it might be treason to say it loudly.
And she stops pointedly at the bloody work and just looks exasperated. Is that the word? Like disbelieving. No archery. And she kind of leans in.
Shrugs his shoulder.
Taking on his tone as well. Why would the king stop that?
Since he's a loyal retainer of the Lord of Helmcrest, you'll need to roll a persuasion check or deception to get him to be more forthcoming.
Can do. We'll go. Did you say perception or deception?
Yep. Either. Sorry, persuasion or deception, okay. I should say.
Okay, yeah, I'll go persuasion. That's a 19.
Wow. So many lords with rivalries and blood feuds in one place. They say the king didn't think it fitting to have skill at arms and shows, lest it bleed over into killings. You know what the nobles are like when they drink in too much frequency. They become angry and overbold, and blood is shed, and half the times we are the ones who bear it.
And Jess thinks back to some feast at Swansong, one of the few that she was allowed to sit in the main hall at, and yeah, she remembers such debauchery occurring. She says, yeah, alcohol will raise the blood.
Aye, and better to keep it in us, eh? And then he'll put his hands back into the open-bellied boar.
She just laughs, amused at that. I'm like, this poor fella.
Yeah, one of the half-day drunk knights will call out a jest at your expense and Darren's, Willem, when you guys arrive, last of the hunting parties to convene here around the drinking lords and the ruination of the great old boar. One of them says something about your lateness as you grow close to the camp, and you can turn from the small fire that one of the servants had set up, Ronald, to regard your brother, and you notice that there's blood spattered across his swan tabardry as there is your own.
Yeah, I guess I will have ridden in like not sure what to expect. See that it's a set-up camp now, and that there's no more quarrel to be had. And I'll be kind of like, I guess the horse will be blowing because we've just sort of, come here as quickly as we can in
pace,
haste.
yeah.
And I would still be very bloody. My hair had like come loose when I was cutting the stag's head off, and so that's like whipped about my face and blood smeared and on my hands as well. And the horn, we were far off up the ridge, but we came as fast as we could.
My men called it preemptively in alarm, but your brother here had all well in hand, young Willem, will say, Lord Harte with a smile, gesturing towards your brother and his cups.
None hurt then?
Only
A
horses.
horse and my pride, says the Lord, gesturing at his dirtied side of his trousers where he'd fallen from his horse.
All part of a hunt.
You've seen blood sport too, Darren, says Sir Kevan, not in a japing manner, but in like a friendly manner. Like, oh, that's great. And Darren looks sheepish about it. Well, it was mostly Willem here.
He is
played my part.
modest. Darren played an important part, and I'm sure these horns would have been in me if Darren had not been there to strike true with his spear. And I've got the head strapped to the horse, as I'll hop off so it can be seen better.
It seems we both owe a small debt to the sons of House Grayle, brother. Would you not say? Says Kevan to Darren, and he smiles and nods in assent.
Ryan will give a look to Willem of that's a well done. Fair play to you. You didn't fuck it up.
I smile knowingly at how foolish it was, how we may be living killed.
Yeah, it's as if Lord Gerard Harte, suddenly recognizes you and you, Willem, and he regards you in that company of men who sit around the fire drinking while the servants take to the toil.
Nice.
Where did you learn to hunt like that, boy? And he'll ask you about the deer fight, and while Darren tells Kevan, you can tell Lord Gerald. And I guess you'd feel a small feeling of contentment, maybe, Ronald, or something like it, as you see kind words being exchanged between the Lord and your brother.
Yeah, I think he'd be quite proud, because he gives Willem a hard time, but that's because they're related, and that's the nature of every sibling relationship. But he'd be pretty pleased and proud of him for he got a stag, and Bleeding Piper only got some foxes, so there's some real achievement there, and so he'd be, I think, pretty pleased with the day's work.
Meanwhile, back at Helmcrest, how had you spent the greater part of the day, Oster?
Oh, I would be seeking, if possible, to secure a better position for my brothers during the wedding, their positioning to see the ceremony. I'm sure that it's in some type of order, so I don't know who would have to bribe or sweet
the
talk.
Steward, who's also the maester.
Well, then yes, that is the man that I would seek out. And I also question him about his rookery, being that it seemed to have some repute.
He'd be not too dissimilar kind of scene, as in something like a wedding planner scene where he's pointing here and there and telling people, be careful with that and be more vibrant with this and blah, blah, blah. And don't you know there's 100 people to feed here, and all manner of business that he's caught up in. And he'll see your approach and remember you from the day before and try to think of what the meaning of your coming might be, and so he'll give you an inquiring look as you grow close. And he'll stop his shouting to other people.
Yes, Maester. Or is it Steward? Maester, Steward.
Both. Haemden, he'll say, as if he'll say it in a way like he's expecting you to bow at his mentioning.
I do so. I would say that my brothers will be returning from the hunt. Lord Grayle.
Yes, they will return before noon. Afternoon, he says. They are expected.
Yes, I was inquiring about their position at the wedding this evening.
As you know, there are a great many minor lords in attendance here, and all will be ordered according to station.
As my brother has informed me, he was in deep discussion with Lord Harte's daughter. I would hate for him to not see the wedding properly.
I see, he says, and he adopts a face of men that you've dealt with in the past, where you've descended into the subtle realm of bribery that can't be spoken outwardly of, but must be indulged if you are to meet your means.
Yeah, so if that could be secured.
It is ever so costly to feed the noble high tables, and you will imagine that a great many lords and ladies vie for proximity to the noble nuptials.
Yes, what could a minor house such as us do to mitigate such costs?
Our kitchen bears a great cost in silver. A great cost, sir, he says, wobbling his chin.
Yeah, I'm like fishing for like what would be like a number this guy's after.
20 great pike roasted in almond milk, and 3 swans served up with honeyed feathers, he says.
Holy shit. That sounds expensive. Yeah, like what would that cost in silver? Like I'm
You
just
think
asking
100
you.
silver stags might be a good opening bid?
100? Oh, okay. Did
Yeah,
we have
extortionate. Certainly not like paying for the cost, but in fact extortionate.
do we have like a purse that we like a traveling fund of some sort?
Yeah, I think the soldiers were given coin for the lords to use at their leisure, and I think 100 silver pieces would be like a decent portion of that, like a majority portion of that.
My eyes go wide at that. That is a yes, that was a great sum indeed. Perhaps 80.
He like mulls over the figure and takes a discerning look at you to see if like quarreling over the cost of it further will drive you away. That's 80 silver pieces for him, and he can rejig the seating within reason as needed. And given the prestige of your house's size, despite the slurs associated with it, with the events of the Black Swan and the Battle of the Trident, he will eventually nod and move in such a way so that the majority of servants can't see the exchange of coin between you and he. I will make sure that your Lords Grayle are seated within speaking distance of the Lady Eileen, as it is your wish.
Thank you. And as we're counting the coins out, I ask, I've heard a reputation of your rookery. I, being one of a student at the Citadel, I have some knowledge of this. Would you, if time permits it, of course, spare me, a tour?
I am afraid I am poor of time of late, sir, and I do not indulge the habit usually of selling the raven chicks to men who are not chained.
Yeah.
Though coin paves many roads.
I smell at that. I'd say, yeah, well, perhaps, but not this one this evening, as I'm short of funds. Good day to you, Master Steward.
And to you, he says, like probing for your name.
Rivers. Oster Rivers.
Master Oster. I wish you well, and I will see you at the feast, no doubt. And he'll look to the vacant chairs where your lords will be seated, and then back to you, and with like a questioning look on his face. Oh, but you are a bastard, nay?
Indeed, but can a seat be secured?
I am afraid not, sir. Even with coin, my lord would not allow it. The bastard's feast will be well equipped with food and drink for you and your like.
Well, that is fine, as long as my brothers have a good place.
I will ensure it is done, sir. True to our word, we are here at Helmcrest.
Yes, I nod in agreement to that.
If you'll excuse me, he'll look to someone doing something wrong, and he'll go to make it right.
Please.
You walk away thinking that the man has a disdain of those not chained from the Citadel, like yourself, and
Sure.
has no liking of people of bastard blood, which
Yeah, a double strike against me, it seems.
But those prejudices were easy enough for you to discern out of him.
Okay. If that, and I also keep the knight with me. If
The
he's
Garen Port.
yeah. He's no Sir Boris Alton. If he has no other like.
Yeah.
And I'd question him about like if he plans to travel north. I know his desire is to travel south to
The
fight
capital.
an attorney. Yeah, to fight an attorney. But then like his plans after that, maybe.
He'll confess as you find him at lunch at practice, like a serving person that he's hired temporarily from the town is scouring his mail and such. He'll say that he intends to go where the wind takes him after the tourney at the capital. He has, to be honest, not thought of much beyond there. What do you propose, sir?
If your winds point you north, know that to visit us at Swan Song.
Swan Song. On the Red Fork, northern side. Oh, I've heard of the place.
Indeed. And we're always looking for capable warriors.
I will not forget that, friend. Perhaps I will come calling at summer's end.
Good, see that you do. Well, I also did question the maester about his rookery. Unfortunately, even with coin, I could not secure a tour.
Why, sir?
He just doesn't care for bastard's blood, I guess. And probably too busy with the wedding.
All blood I've seen is red, sir. But I tell you this, if you have the coin, I would buy it on your behalf. One good turn for another.
And it is 2 silver. Right?
No. He wants 20 silver per chickling.
20 silver. Ask if he has, have you heard of that he has any in the feather of a white feathered raven?
Alton wouldn't know, I'd say. If you'd asked the maester earlier, he would have said, alas, no, because they fetch quite a price from the Citadel.
Is it? Yeah, okay. I would say. No, it is all right. A tour is all I needed, but alas, things seem to be quite busy around here with the wedding and all.
Indeed, and I imagine as steward and maester both, his duties would pull him in many ways.
I smile knowingly at that, as sometimes my own duties fall into similar arenas. I say, yes, they are.
He'll arch his back at that and stand up and look over your shoulder, turning your attention that way. A gallant huntsman return. See how they are all clean of their bloody sport. A curious thing, nay? I wonder what they've brought for dinner, and if we shall have any at the bastard's feast.
But look, my brothers, painted in red.
His look grows dark at that. Some trouble in the woods.
That, or they're just successful in the kill.
Let us hope it is the latter, sir. I can tell you must have business soon with your family. I will leave you and find you around the fire with cups again this eve.
Indeed. Good day to you, sir.
And you. Farewell, Ulster. And he'll make his way back to his wagon and destrier.
Yeah, as my brothers approach, seeing them, that they have blood upon their clothes, and also my half-sister. Well, it looks like things were successful then.
Indeed, brother. Very much so.
How was it, Willem?
I would have to say this was the finest hunt that I've been on.
I'm sure if your brother has any plans for you, it will not be your last. So get used to it.
I could
Know your best, Jess calls out.
He's done amazingly well. We've both done rather well, actually.
It looks like your quiver's missing a few arrows too, Jess.
Well, I did well, she says, looking pointedly at Ronald.
Yeah,
We all did well.
He'll just ignore it, like he can't even hear it. And like maybe he like literally can't. Like he's unable to think that he didn't do it.
Yeah.
I feel like she'd kind of like flick his ear sort of playfully a bit, like, come on, mate.
Well, I have secured you a place at the wedding, so you will not sit. You'll be able to smell the roses from the from the bride's bouquet.
I'll smile and like clasp his shoulder and say before, and then see that my hand's all bloody and take it away to not bloody up your clothes and say,
Yeah.
you do better than expected, as always.
Thank you.
Wait till you see this boar. There's going to be so much meat for the bastard's feast, even, he says to Oster.
Well, is it of something of note?
Like nothing I've ever seen. Like a beast from a song.
Oh. Oster perks up after that. Really? Yeah, well then, yes. I would most like to see this thing.
Even dead, it was fearsome. It slew Ronald's horse in one blow, I think.
Indeed.
Gored it in half.
Have I ever heard of anything like this? Like if it's like a dire boar or something?
That is the first thought that comes to your head, and that's seeing haunches of it and such being born into the castle, even from a distance, and by the testimony of your younger brothers, it seems consistent with that. Like something that should be like uncommon, if not extinct, this far south. You've heard stories of it and teachings of it while you're in the Citadel, being more common in number in the north, especially north of the Wall.
Seeing it, yeah, and then hearing the retelling of it, my mirth somewhat turns to worry as I look over my brothers and thankful that they have returned safely. Well, good. I'm glad that none of you were marred by this creature. Even if you don't return to Swan Song with wives, you'll have this to show Father.
Somehow I think we might return with at least one, or at least a promise of one.
Well, and I lean in. Hopefully, hopefully it is the younger daughter Harte.
That's right. I spoke with her somewhat last night. She is, and he nods to himself, like trying to find words. She is fair and smart. I like her.
Ronald will like poke him and like grab him in a headlock and give him a little nuggie, and then like sort of chuckle and like wander off to get himself cleaned up so he can go eat.
Yeah, so Garen Squire will see to you and him and see that you guys are like bathed and hair oiled and brushed and clothes readied for the nuptials this afternoon.
Yes, you should all make yourselves ready and stick to topics that you know about.
At some point, Willem will like show Jess his wounded horse. Ask like what can be done about it. He'll like have bandaged it up quickly, but it's like near bloodied.
Oh, you poor girl. Look how he's treated your wound as well, she says, like tisking and undoing the dressing and sort of cleaning it and redoing it herself. It doesn't look too bad, she says, as she is sort of working on the wound. She walked back okay?
Yes, indeed. Indeed, we rode. It was a patchy job, as I did it in haste to answer the blowing of the horns.
Hmm. Well, good thing we dispatched the boar in time. It was a
Yeah.
difficult spot for you to come across that ridge. Or did you go around the long way?
We went round the long way. I feared for old girl here and also my companion. It was quite green after we took the stag down.
And Jess says, kind of somewhat bitterly, but playfully as always, I didn't. I didn't see how much of a limp your girl may have had on the ride back since Ronald took Stepper and rode back on her himself, and I had to walk since the boar slew his. But your girl here, she'll be okay.
Willem sort of laughs, and as there's no one around now, he says, "So he took your kill, and then he took your horse."
Yeah. That's my lot, brother, she says with a smile.
Indeed, those arrows were well placed.
She nods genuinely. Master Hallis has taught me well, and years of practice has done the rest. And you got your first kill then, did you?
Yes, I suppose so. Pretty dangerous, that, actually.
Well, it's good to see that both of my brothers have won themselves some trophies, she says, and possibly then eyeing in the background the young Eileen that may be sort of walking past in the background, busying herself with preparations.
You're up on the
Yes.
ramparts.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll say, yes, I have the writ of request for her hand from father. I'll present it with the trophy tonight, I think.
Sometime later, the seventh bell calls the nobles and guests of repute into the curtain wall and onto the sept to hear orations by Sept and Moore and to see the marriage of Kevan and Sylvie. But that will all happen next session of Iron Plot, and we'll finish it up there, I think, guys.
Oh,
Rad.
Excellent.
thanks.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yep. Deadly. Thanks, Nico. And thanks for watching. If you